Juwan Jennings, trick play. Oh, this ball's in the air for a long time. McCaffrey's able to pull it down, and he's going in for the touchdown. Juwan Jennings with a touchdown pass.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Trying to take the lead. Mahomes goes for it right away. Wide open. Touchdown. Valdez-Scantling.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
2nd and 9. Purdy's pass. Caught. Jennings did it. What an effort breaking tackles. Now he's thrown for a touchdown and caught another.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
2nd and 6. The Sun in trouble. Oh, what a play. Brings it to McCaffrey, and it gets past Edwards. High stepping and pushed out by Snead.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
With the game on the line. Gonna jump off sides first. Mahomes has it. He's easily going to get the first.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
1st and goal. Mahomes flings it. It's there! Hardman! Jackpot! Kansas City!
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
We are back in the studio, and as much as Vegas can be fun or anywhere we're on the road, that's great, but we're all back together in our nice, cozy, beautiful studio in Waco, Texas, 365 Sports. Craig, glad to have you back with us. Paul Catalina on David Smoak. Garrett Ross was in Vegas with us. He's here. Jack McKenzie was doing all the heavy work while we were gone, too. Emery will be a part of what we do with 365 Sports tonight. The Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls in 5 years, and this was supposed to be one of the years you could get Patrick Mahomes, and yet not even San Francisco. Do you know that they were never an underdog in any game they played this year, and they were the favorite to beat Kansas City, and Kansas City yet did it again?
Yeah, they were fantastic down the stretch, and I did a top 5 on Friday. Soki, you weren't there. We were getting ready to leave, but I recorded a top 5, and one of the things I said that you had to do was not give Pat Mahomes a sliver of hope and score touchdowns, not field goals. Well, what happened in overtime? You scored a field goal, not a touchdown. You gave Patrick Mahomes a sliver of hope, and what did he do? Just took it right down the field, scored a touchdown, and they won. 1-53 this year. The 49ers were probably the best roster in the league. The difference, again, and I've said it many, many times, the difference is Patrick Mahomes. You cannot give that guy a sliver of hope. This was the best opportunity you had to out-offense the Chiefs that you're probably ever going to have, because next year they're not going to be as sputtering on offense as they had tendencies to be this year. They'll fix those problems. That will be eliminated because that's who they are as an organization. But Patrick Mahomes showed why, he's the next great one, and kicking a field goal to beat Patrick Mahomes is bringing a knife to a gunfight, because he will go get a touchdown.
Well, welcome back, fellas. Hope y'all had a good time in Vegas, and it sure seems like y'all did, and I'm glad to be back in talking with everybody once again. But, I just sat there last night after watching what turned out to be a pretty great game with a very exciting finish, and just realized I may have watched the greatest football player of all time when he played high school football.
Yeah, you did. Well, you did.
I think I probably did. The way that it's tracking right now, I think that I probably did. And he was a safety when I first saw him, Patrick Mahomes, at White House High School. But, that's something that I've been fortunate to be able to just say, and it doesn't mean anything. I'm not going to pretend like I've, had anything to do with anything, or that I'm like best buddies with the family. I know, his father and know Patrick a little bit, but just to know, like, for people that don't understand, growing up in Tyler, where he's from, you heard all the time about Patrick Mahomes' kid. You heard it. You heard it constantly. You even heard about Jackson, believe it or not. But you even heard a little bit about Jackson being a good athlete. And Pat Mahomes, obviously a former Major League Baseball player, but you just heard it. You heard it throughout the years. And then you heard all about this. He's going to go play Major League Baseball. He's a great athlete. He can play basketball. He can play football. But he's probably going to go play baseball like his daddy. And that was just the prevailing thought. And then, got into high school and was a great star in pretty much everything that he did. And then football obviously took over his life. And here we are, guys. And it's amazing. 3 Super Bowls already. Not even, scratching the surface of the amount of time that he's got left, God willing, in the game of football. And so who knows what he turns this into. But just amazing to watch them do it again last night. Amazing to watch him in particular orchestrate them getting it done again. And, yeah, you give him a chance to win a game, 9.99 times out of 10, he's going to find a way to win that game. And he and his teammates together are just a hell of a combination, including obviously the coaching staff and Andy Reid in there. We talk Belichick, Brady, you got to talk Reid, Mahomes, and you got to talk all the other great combos. But, man, what Kansas City's done these last few years is just incredible. And, yeah, very unfortunate for San Francisco. I mean, you had it. You had a lead again, and you just kind of got away, got off kilter, and couldn't find your groove and finish that thing off. So, yeah, what a game, what a way to finish the NFL season, and what a player Patrick Mahomes is.
Yeah, the 3 Super Bowls, there aren't many quarterbacks in history. Joe Montana is one. Troy Aikman is one that have won 3 Super Bowl titles, and I know I'm missing one off the top of my head. There's probably Tom Brady has 6. And there might be
7.
one other, 7, might be one other that has 3. Here's a note about Patrick Mahomes' resume. Joe Pampliano, who's really gotten to like a lot of what he puts up, 2 MVPs during the season, 2 first-team All-Pros, 6 consecutive championship game appearances, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl MVP, a $500 million contract, owns a stake in those franchises listed below, which is a part of his deal, and he's 28 years old. Now, we have seen some players get off to a really nice start, and then for whatever reason, unfortunately, sometimes injury or things do fall apart, but it does appear as if they're set up to have what might be, and yet we said this about Georgia, a 3rd consecutive championship. Usually something happens, but they do seem to be a well-grounded franchise.
They're a fantastic franchise. They know exactly what they're doing. They know exactly how to draft. And look, that's why I have no qualms about saying that next year their offense will probably be one of the best in the NFL and not one that sputters at times. They'll go find what they need. They'll find the right pieces. Look, they draft at 32nd. They'll be able to get a really good wide receiver or someone to help at that spot. They'll be able to go out in free agency and do some things. We'll see what happens with Chris Jones. That's going to be a huge deal for their defense. He certainly he made what I thought was the defensive play of the game last night when he got in Brock Purdy's face right at the end and took away Jawan Jennings' Super Bowl MVP from him on that play, because that would have been a 3rd touchdown responsible for Jawan Jennings, and he would have been the MVP, and people would have been talking about him in the same way we talk about Larry Brown or Dexter Jackson or someone like that. But it's it's just they're just so good at what they do. Andy Reid was a guy who's like Kyle Shanahan was at this point. He could get him right to the lip of the cup, but couldn't get it in. And now Andy Reid is automatic, and Patrick Mahomes is just the most difficult player to beat. Earlier on the triple option, I compared it to, think about Jerry Sloan and John Stockton and Karl Malone with the Utah Jazz. Jerry Sloan might be remembered differently, and he was a great NBA coach and a Hall of Fame player and all that. But he might be remembered very differently if Michael Jordan wasn't a thing that existed. And the same thing for Kyle Shanahan. He might be remembered very differently right now if Patrick Mahomes wasn't a person that played in the NFL. But that's just the fact of life, and Patrick Mahomes is kind of the NFL's Jordan right now.
Yeah, I was watching I believe it was a CBS pregame show, and saw some guys, and everybody was making their picks. I guess it's Boomer and that whole crew of guys. And a few of them, I don't remember exactly what each person's response was, but they were all mentioning of like, well, I know the thing is you don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. And then they went with the Chiefs because of that, or they went against the Chiefs. But I'm going to put my neck out there and think the 49ers get it. I just don't know how you bet against him anymore. I mean, if Andy Reid retires, then okay, there's a crack. But if Patrick Mahomes is out there and he's being coached by Andy Reid, I don't give a damn who the wide receivers are. I don't care who the running backs are. I mean, I care about the O-line because you've got to protect the guy, but even still, he overcomes that when it's not that great. So, I mean, he's definitely not alone. He's got a Hall of Fame tight end, obviously. He's got several other Hall of Famers on that roster. He's got an incredible defense, a really good defense that's also backing him up. But, yeah, I'm just, in general, if the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes, I'll worry about the rest of the details about who else surrounds him. But if the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes with Andy Reid, then I'm going to bank on them being the favorites every year that they're together. And that would include next year because you already had Kelsey talking about running it back with the three-peat and all of that. So, yeah, that's obviously what their goal is going to be after they go visit Disneyland and do all of the parades and things that are headed their way. But, yeah, just a heartbreaker for Kyle Shanahan. You wonder if he's, in his mind – wondering if he'll ever get over the hump at this point, but he's still a younger guy. He's got a lot of games to coach left. They'll be fine in the long run, but they had a pretty special roster put together, and you don't know that they're going to be able to just run that back necessarily. But, yeah, with the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, it's an incredible combination. They've got a lot of really good players around them as well, and so, yeah, they'll run it back and see if they can't become the first team to make it 3 Super Bowls in a row. They're already stating that's the goal, so start the countdown whenever you're done celebrating.
We will today have Dave Ammerman. He is Golden's head of revenue and sports consignment on collectibles, on games, jerseys, helmets, ball, whatever from last night's Super Bowl. His thoughts about the value of some of what may have happened or what you would have a chance to collect. Joseph Duarte, as Houston adds long time. He played at Texas. He was all Southwest Conference at Texas. Oscar Giles joining the staff in Houston and also on the Cougars, and number 3 ranked team in the country. Todd Lebo, he's out of Kansas City, Sports Radio 810. He will join us on what's happening today in Kansas City. And then John Wilner on UCLA today, hiring former star running back Deshaun Foster to replace Chip Kelly, who's now at Ohio State. So all of that coming up today on the show. Now, back in 2019, Patrick Mahomes was having a great start to his career, and there was a tweet about how he had 38% or whatever the number was of Troy Aikman's career touchdowns like in his first or second year. Aikman I love Troy Aikman, by the way. I think he's just a model of everything about it. But Aikman responded, talk to me when he has 33% of my Super Bowl titles. Well, he now has 100% of Troy's Super Bowl titles and 136% of his overall career touchdowns. That was kind of cool. And then Aikman today, or maybe it been last night, tweeted out congratulations to Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Well, I do think it's funny that people compare eras unfairly. Troy Aikman was a tremendous passer. Was the most accurate passer in the league when he was playing. They just didn't need to do that, and the game was different then. If you put Troy Aikman in today's offenses, he would throw for 4,500 to 5,000 yards a year. I mean, you're telling, like, Dak Prescott's done it. You're telling me Aikman wouldn't have done that? Like, come on. It's different. So, different game, different time.
That's like looking back at guys in the 70s and 80s. But Aikman, when he needed to throw for 300-plus yards, he did. And could, but as far as accuracy, efficiency, and winning, and talk about leadership, et cetera, most of these guys all have that. But he was extra special, no question. And that was just him a little bit maybe sensitive about the numbers, and yet here we are with Patrick Mahomes having his 3rd Super Bowl.
It was 2019 when he said that. Yeah. So, I mean, let's take that into account. It was 4 years ago. So, I mean, at the time, nobody could have said, oh, Troy's going to eat his words. I mean, yeah, who would have thought that Patrick's going to rack up 3 Super Bowls in 4 or 5 years? I mean, so, yeah, he's eating those words now, but Troy was on a star-laden team much like Patrick was. Difference was Troy's teams didn't have salary caps. They had an advantage there that Kansas City doesn't have. I still don't know how Kansas City and teams like San Francisco put their rosters together and have like 17 Pro Bowlers, and there's teams that have like nobody. I don't know how that happens still with the salary cap, but they truly didn't have one in Dallas's era. And I'm sure, Troy would be super successful. He's not touching Patrick Mahomes, though. I mean, he's not he's not touching Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, that comment at the time, I think probably most people would have said, yeah, go Troy. Like, yeah, who's this? Quit putting this guy in a category he doesn't belong in yet. But now he's past that. I mean, he's going to surpass that probably in the next couple of years the way it's going right now. And I'm sure Patrick is having a lot of fun with all the people who doubted him over the years and things like that. But a harmless comment by Troy dug up, and that's understandable. There's a lot of those out there, a lot of receipts out there when it comes to the Chiefs. All the hand-wringing I remember hearing throughout the year, of just like I just never got into it because it just felt very much like the media trying to make something. I understand Kansas City struggled at times, but this whole idea of just – I don't know. I don't think that's a team you can ever rule out as long as their quarterback and their head coach is there, like I said earlier. So here they are, and the question now becomes, forget Troy Aikman. I mean, Tom Brady just retired like yesterday, basically. I mean, he retired a year ago, and there's no way that when he retired, he thought he'd already have some young kid on his heels chasing his numbers down. And I tell you what, Patrick Mahomes is 28 years old. He's already got 3 titles. That's the number you now start watching is the Tom Brady number. I guess what Montana would be next.
Well, you have Montana, Bradshaw, Aikman, and there's one other I think.
Oh, he's
and
past
Mahomes.
Aikman.
He's past Aikman.
With 3,
He's tied with Aikman.
Or tied with Aikman.
He's
Yeah.
tied
No,
with
Aikman has 3.
Yeah. Okay, so-
Montana,
but tied with
Aikman,
Aikman.
Terry Bradshaw, and Mahomes have 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
Montana has 4.
Yeah.
Okay.
Montana has
Montana
4.
has 4.
That's right. Steve Young. I'm thinking about when Young won it against San Diego.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyways, he'll be up next for, starting knocking the doors of those guys as far as all-time Super Bowl titles, and that's the countdown. So, yeah, this next one he'll pass Troy and go chase some others, but the Tom Brady and that number will be something to watch for sure.
Bradshaw has 4, too, with all in the 1970s, including the last one against the Rams. Okay. Yeah, I agree. 7 Super Bowls, and here we are with Mahomes, and you never know. He might get to 4. He might not. He might not get to 5 or 9 or whatever. We don't know, but it's a hell of a complete resume that he has already, and love the way he handles his business and separates whatever's going on with football and also off the field. Now, the Super Bowl odds are out. We say this a lot. Can you just enjoy what happened the night before? But in college football, they have the next year's preseason top 25 or early look at it. The Super Bowl odds, they're already out. 49ers were not one time this past year not the favorite. Kansas City 2, Ravens 3, Lions at 4, and Buffalo 5. That seems to be pretty reasonable. We don't know how free agency will help or hurt anybody, but there you have your 5. And then in another category after that, you're going to have the Eagles, you're going to have the Cowboys, among others, but those are the 5 teams based on the consensus is spelled wrong. Consensus of the odds in Vegas on the teams who are right now the favorites.
Yeah, well, look, it shouldn't be the Cowboys because Jerry said they're going for it.
No, it's surprising they're not on there because it's kind of like you just include them in any other list because people get their attention.
Honest to God, though, how are the Chiefs not number 1? Like, I mean, that is so stupid. What are we doing here? I mean, this is, I guess that's another one of those. I mean, y'all were in Vegas. Y'all are experts now, I'm sure, compared to me on
we're not.
all the things going on there. But that's just silly to me. I mean, I can understand the 49ers being a slight favorite heading into yesterday's game, but I just don't know how you put anybody above Kansas City right now. But I'm sure they have their reasons. But, yeah, I'd imagine there's already many people that have placed their bets on next year's odds. I don't know what you call that. Some would call it a sickness probably. Some would call it getting ahead. Whatever the case may be for why you've already placed your bets. I mean, yeah, those are the logical teams to be going after. And I just don't know how you don't put Kansas City number 1. But, okay, got to make things interesting, I guess.
No, you're right. It's amazing, but there we are with San Francisco. Okay, coming up in about 20 minutes is Dave Ammerman on the collectibles for what happened, the jerseys, the helmets, etc. On McCole Hardman, how much is that football worth? He did not even realize he had won the Super Bowl. Did you hear that? Mahomes mentioning, and the 49ers admitting after the game, which blows my mind, Kansas City had practiced that if it goes overtime, it's a different situation in the Super Bowl, and a lot of the 49ers did not know that, and maybe even with the coin flip, because they took the ball first. Also, we'll hear more from you in the chat. The text line, 254-339-1122, that's available. Much more to get to. UCLA has a new football coach and more And this is 365 Sports. Ideal MRI in the Central Texas marketplace. Ideal MRI will provide you all of what you need for $497 or less. State-of-the-art MRI machine. I've been in it. An incredible company that Dr. Rob Maxey and his partners have put together. When you and your doctor decide, okay, I need to get an MRI, or he wants or she wants you to get one, that's the decision. That's the choice. It shouldn't be a choice. It's easy. $497 or less, plus the convenience. You're not going to wait a long time to get the appointment. You're not going to have to wait a long time when you get to your appointment, from the front desk to the text to the specialist, and then when you get the images and the reading from those who read your MRI. It is a fantastic process, and $497 or less when the average is $1,100. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas marketplace off I-35 in Waco.
Shop big savings during the Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Ram 1500 is the most luxurious and technologically advanced Ram 1500 ever. There's a great selection on the lot and ready for immediate delivery. Ram Truck Month sales event is a winner at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely. And I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
All right, so UCLA lost Chip Kelly, headed to Ohio State. That came down on Friday to take the offensive coordinator's job for somebody that worked for him at one point in Ryan Day. So what does UCLA do? They turn this thing around quickly. Deshaun Foster, who was an All-American running back at UCLA and a part of a lot of their history when it comes to rushing yards and touchdowns, had a 7-year NFL career, has been on the staff of UCLA pretty much every year since he retired from football, 1 year on Cliff Kingsbury's staff as a running backs coach at Tech in 2016. He, today, named the head coach at UCLA. From all indications in the meeting when it was announced, the players were excited. The environment was loud and boisterous. There are some that are saying, wait a minute, is he ready for this? I don't know, but UCLA has Deshaun Foster as their head coach.
Well, first of all, ready, you'll never know until you try. Second, it's February 12th. Like, what are you going to do? Like, outside of going to hire somebody who is
a retread,
like, say, go hire David Shaw. Like, all right, that's not really that's a good hire. I mean, it would have made sense to bring in David Shaw, but you also don't have a lot of time to sit there and vet 7 candidates like you would if you fired Chip Kelly on November 15th, like A&M did with Jimbo Fisher. You don't have time to do that because right now you're a month away from spring football. I think it's the smoothest transition possible. And look, what's going to change? Like, if they're not good, if Deshaun Foster's not ready, then they'll make another head coaching change, but the timing of this just makes it to where who's the best guy you think you have for the job? If the players want Deshaun Foster, if you want Deshaun Foster, if you think he's going to be good, then go ahead and do it.
Yeah, the Chip Kelly thing was just bizarre, really, in the end when you think about leaving a Power 2 coaching job for a Power 2 OC job in the same conference. That's just wild, and there was just too much noise there with old Chip. After a while, why is it still so loud? It's constantly loud. Why is there always noise coming out of Westwood about Chip Kelly and this job? And then you ultimately see him make the decision that he made. So, yeah, put UCLA in quite the pickle. The Ohio State situation is going to be fascinating. I mean, the fact that was rumored to possibly go to Bill O'Brien, but then he ends up with the head coaching gig there at Boston College. So that was very interesting to come out in the late last week as well, is that old B.O.B. will be taking over the Eagles out there in the ACC. So that's something of interest. But, yeah, the Chip Kelly thing, I was not upset about not being on at times last week, but that was one of those like, oh, that's a pretty hot story right there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's that move by UCLA to go and replace him quickly. I mean, you only, like you guys said, have so many options, I think, at your disposal, especially given that it's nearly mid-February at this point, or practically is mid-February at this point. So I don't know. I won't pretend to know whether this is a great hire or not. He certainly has a lot of experience specifically at UCLA. He's been in the college coaching game for a decade now. I don't know all the particulars of what those who will break it down of whether it's great or not will lay out there, but I certainly can't sit there and say it's a bad hire. Like anybody else, need to see a lot more. It's not a splash hire. We can all agree on that, but it is a guy who's got an NFL background and, again, has been around the program for quite a while now. So if the players like it, that's a nice step forward. Doesn't mean they're going to win as a result of that, but it sure beats the players not liking your choice. So that is a nice start, but yeah, let's just see what happens. That's a weird program. It really is. We talk about all these programs moving around, and we just throw UCLA in there. And quite frankly, if they weren't in Los Angeles, I don't know if we'd ever talk about UCLA football. I mean, really, Chip Kelly's had some moments there, but it's kind of few and far between when they really jump out at the forefront of your mind when you're talking college sports. And now they're making this big move to the Big Ten. Having a coaching change all at the same time. I say all that to say I just wonder kind of where they're going to fall in this whole thing moving forward. Is it going to be similar to their time in the Pac where every few years they jump up and have a good season, or have a string together and then kind of fade and bounce back and forth, or is he a star in the making we have no idea about? I don't know, but yeah, definitely wasn't expecting Chip Kelly to go take an OC job in college. That's the one thing I could say I was not expecting.
You wonder if it's the move that also at least helps enhance what they have on staff, where there's not yet another churning of that, and also maybe even on the roster. There was somebody on Twitter that mentioned that Deshaun Foster was promoted. Actually, he was not. What's crazy, he'd been a part of the UCLA staff every year since 13, other than the 1 year at Tech. He had just, in the last week, taken the job with the Raiders with Antonio Pierce. So he was gone. And then UCLA did not give up on that, so he now is the head coach of his alma mater. Quote from the meeting, from one of the people in the meeting, one of the most ecstatic environments I've been a part of. And that was when they announced that Deshaun Foster was going to be the head coach with UCLA.
Yeah, congrats to him, and let's see what it looks like. I mean, I really don't know what to expect with Deshaun Foster at the helm, but Chip Kelly had some good moments, some not so good moments there in LA, and so yeah, congrats to Deshaun Foster on the gig, and get ready for Big Ten ball and whatever that's all going to look like next year when we have all of the conferences making these sweeping changes. So, interested to see where UCLA kind of falls early on in this whole ordeal with Oregon, Washington, USC, and all of those now new Big Ten teams to contend with as well.
Willie Fritz dipping into history. A lot of blood in Texas. Oscar Giles played at UT, All-Southwest Conference, 25 years as an assistant coach around the country. I think 22 of the 25 in the state of Texas. He also has been at his alma mater as an assistant at Texas. His last 2 years with Craig Bowl, who we had on a couple of weeks ago in the American Football Coaches Association, while at Wyoming. He now is a part of that staff with Willie Fritz at the University of Houston. Now, I want to go to this note. Sometimes predictions are bad. I did predict Kansas City to win the game. Big deal. I said 15 was the difference, and maybe in the end he was. Paul threw this one out at me. This is a tweet from A. David Halejoint. College football's top hires in 2018. This was after every one of these coaches was hired, and look at if they're there where they were hired. Scott Frost, Nebraska. Jimbo at A&M. Willie Taggart at FSU. That lasted a while. Dan Mullen, Florida. Chad Morris, Arkansas. Joe Moorhead at Mississippi State. Chip Kelly at UCLA. That's why this list becomes valuable. Kevin Sumlin, Arizona. Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. And Herm Edwards at Arizona State. And all of them are gone from David, he made the list based on the hires. And now all of them are gone. Gone. That's pretty remarkable considering that's all from the 2018 coaching cycle.
Yeah, and, look, Willie Taggart wasn't a retread, really. I mean, he was still kind of an up-and-comer at the time. Jimbo was, at that point, 4 seasons off of a national title. But all the rest of them, you really kind of felt like stretches or,
Scott Frost?
Well, Scott Frost, yeah. I forgot about
just
Scott.
gone unbeaten.
Just gone unbeaten. So,
and then, of course, that was a nightmare.
But, yeah, so it was, yeah.
There might have been people that thought Scott Frost wasn't going to go and win national championships, but I don't know how you could think that wasn't a good hire at the time. I mean, he was super hot coming off of UCF, and there was no reason to believe other than just a lack of coaching experience overall that he couldn't be like the man at Nebraska. So, I actually think that was a good hire. Jimbo was a great hire for A&M. I mean, what's the difference? Talking about after the fact of what they actually did or at the time who they hired? Jimbo was a great hire. That was the big splash hire for Texas A&M. I mean, Willie Taggart, I don't know how excited you really got at FSU about that hire. Dan Mullen at Florida, I think you liked that at the time. Chip Kelly at UCLA, you liked that at the time. Joe Moorhead obviously is a difficult situation. And then, it's like I think there were some hires there that you like, but yeah, they did not ultimately pass the longevity test. Let's say that. Kevin Sumlin at Arizona. I mean, I almost forget that even happened. Basically, Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee. Obviously, Herm Edwards was a disaster for Arizona State. The Arizona schools got really pinched hard with those two hires during that cycle. But yeah, I think. The tweet says a murderer's row of epically terrible hires. I don't agree with that because I think some of those were good hires at the time. They just didn't work out in the long run, if that makes sense.
Also, by the way, Spencer Goff in the chat room. That wasn't a list of coaches. It was the Deadpool list from Dirty Harry in that 1980s movie. We'll have men's basketball notes a little bit later on in the show today, but we wanted to touch in on what was going on. We did not have a chance to talk much about Chip Kelly. And is this another example, yet another example of a coach at a Power 5 school, an autonomy school, and at a school that had won 8 games, I think, 3 consecutive years, which UCLA didn't do a lot of. And he takes the offensive coordinator's position at Ohio State. Maybe there's some issues with how UCLA's doing NIL and all whatever. But here's another example of somebody moving from a head coaching position at a highly thought, I know, checkered, but now goes to Ohio State to be the offensive coordinator.
I think it's going to be very interesting to see him there. I think it's better developmentally for the quarterbacks than Bill O'Brien, who is okay at that. Chip Kelly's proven to be pretty darn good at it over his career. So I think that, taking a lot off his plate, which he clearly wants to, and I'm sure his recruiting role is not going to be what it was and what they might expect. And again, you've got Brian Hartline there on staff with him, who is the best recruiter, maybe even in the country, one of them. So I think it'll work out well for Ohio State. Every move they've made has come up aces. I thought the Bill O'Brien move as their offensive coordinator was kind of blah. I do think it's a good move for Boston College because I think he really wants that kind of a job. But I do think that Chip Kelly's an upgrade over Bill O'Brien as it stands to quarterback development in today's game.
Yeah, I think Bill O'Brien is a great hire for Boston College.
Yeah.
I mean, especially given that you don't have like these must-have right now type of expectations. Like, let them sit there, sizzle, and build that thing up. And I know it's not going to be the sexiest thing of all time, but I mean, we're talking about Boston College football with all due respect. So you don't really need to have the splash, and still they made a splash. I mean, you went and hired a guy who's got a lot of experience, NFL and college-wise, and some really big jobs, head coaching experience, all of that. So, yeah, I think that's one that will be interesting to follow over time with BC there. But I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you're rejoicing. Absolutely, you'd rather have Chip Kelly than Bill O'Brien as your OC on paper and just in theory and just based on the eye test and excitement levels and things like that, development. I think that Bill O'Brien would have been fine, but I think that Chip Kelly is a flashier, sexier hire, if you will, and one that doesn't bring kind of the like, oh God, because Bill O'Brien does have that baggage. I mean, people do, like, you hear Bill O'Brien, people like rollers like, oh God, and they think of not very good coaching or development or whatever, but clearly a lot of great football minds think differently. But Chip Kelly, you don't get that. You get the whole idea of what he was at Oregon like 15 years ago is still what people think of when they think of Chip Kelly. So, you hope that you got some splash coming your way in Columbus, and I think you're excited about that one now. It's a part of the equation of all of the decisions being made. This is part of that all moving towards college football coaches not wanting to be college football head coaches anymore. I don't know. I do think it has to at least be some of that. You don't leave a head coaching job for an OC job in the same conference if that's not part of the equation to some extent. I mean, UCLA is not like some horror show job where, God, I want to be a head coach. I just can't do it here anymore. I mean, it's not like that. So, yeah, this definitely plays into that theory, and that theory that's starting to get more examples and more evidence here over these last few weeks of moves that seem like they are all pointing in that direction of college football head coaches or the college football head coaching position not being nearly as attractive or worthwhile as maybe it was even just a couple of years ago because of a lot of extracurriculars. Now, having said that, we're going to see NFL guys taking college coaching jobs, but is it going to be head coaching jobs? I mean, that's the thing. And so, yeah, that's definitely an example where you go, there is more to this than just recklessly talking about there being something to it. No, there's something to it. The head coaches in college football being a little bit fed up in some ways with today's game and all of the things that come with that. And yeah, we'll see how much more there is before there's just like it's just flat in your face and you go, yeah, obviously that's a problem. But yeah, there's a lot of signs that it is a problem right now.
When we come back, what are some of the biggest collectible items based on the game itself? Based on from the time basically you had the national anthem until the post game. We'll have that with Dave Emmerman. He'll join us in just a moment. We'll also, later in the show, what does FanDuel think about the Big 12 football teams going forward with their win totals for next year? All of that and more, 365 Sports. Petty Clinic, lowt.com. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff can help you become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be. Perhaps you have some of the symptoms of ED, your sex drive. You're not sleeping very well. Or perhaps your just focus is just different. Maybe it's a low testosterone. Could be other things. But low testosterone can lead to some of those symptoms and you start to lose confidence. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff will try to help you out. Go to pettycliniclot.com and let them know I sent you. Tell them that maybe there's something going on with my testosterone level. He will set you up for you to get blood work. He will get the results, And if your testosterone level is too low, Dr. Kent Petty can put you in a program to increase your testosterone levels so you can become the high-performance man you want to be, need to be, and used to be at pettyclinicalot.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Waco Custom Marketplace is your hometown grocery store with a full-service butcher shop and bakery. Hi, this is David Smoak. The butcher shop can take your customized orders for seafood, pork, and poultry and custom cut your favorite steaks from bacon-wrapped fillets, sirloin steaks, bone-in ribeyes, boneless ribeyes, and even prime rib. Cut specifically the way you want, the thickness that you want. They're all delicious. They have Norwegian salmon, mahi-mahi, catfish fillets, sliced ham or turkey, variety of cheese, and several options of sausage links, and even regular jalapeno or cheese snack sticks, fresh chicken breast or whole chickens, sliced bacon, pork chops, and ground beef, marinated beef or chicken fajitas, and always large briskets and tri-tip available, plus fresh vegetables. So the great product, customer service, and tradition continues at Waco Custom Marketplace, a full-service butcher shop and bakery, open Monday through Saturday. The Bauer family, Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
So if you look at some of the most valuable collectibles from the Super Bowl game, we're going to hear from Dave Ammerman here in just a moment on some of the most. What do you think would be the most valuable part of that game to have a piece of?
I don't know, like the football at the very end, I guess.
I would think that would have a huge value. McCall Hardman catches the game-winning touchdown. And anything Mahomes, and then we'll even get into perhaps somebody that's not a player if they were involved in any particular way. Dave Ammerman, Golden's head of revenue and sports consignment, joins us. Paul Catalina, Craig, and David Smoak on 365 Sports. Dave, thank you very much. We really do appreciate your time, and it's always unique to see what something might be of value. You have a list, you kind of know yourself. What would you have thought might be the most valuable part of that game from last night as a collectible?
Well, you've obviously got Patrick Mahomes, the, soon to be potentially on his way to being one of the all-time, well, he is already one of the all-time greats, but potentially being one of the greatest ever. His jersey, of course, right? Mm-hmm. The jersey that he wore MVP, winning his third Super Bowl. We've put a price on that, approximately $1.5 million, and that's based off of Joe Montana's Super Bowl MVP jersey we sold earlier this year, a little north of $1 million. So, they're fetching quite a premium these days.
Dave, what kind of weird random things will be valuable from last night's game?
Well, I mean, depends on who's calling them weird and random because, right, in the sports memorabilia business, everything's a little different, right?
Yeah.
The balls, obviously the balls used for touchdown passes, for scoring. Balls from the last couple Super Bowls have gone for 30 to 40 grand, just regular used balls, not even from specific plays. So obviously we'll have game-winning touchdown balls, probably 100 grand, for something like that. Balls from the game, probably 30 to 40, and then obviously different scoring games. Obviously, everyone knows Taylor Swift's been involved. We've actually done some things with the Kelceys, and they have some interesting outfits, to say the least. Right, the walkout outfit, right, could be something. Maybe perhaps a celebration outfit worn for the victory parade. Those could be some really obscure items that we, eventually see out. But obviously, you want the star players' uniforms, really, and their helmets. The helmets are also really desirable. We pinned the Mahomes game use helmet for around $500,000. And who knows, could be more. And obviously, Kelce's jersey from that game as well. If it's his final game, probably a nice premium, maybe 500 grand. But I would imagine 200K plus. For his jersey last night as well. So millions and millions of dollars worth of memorabilia, to be had from the game last night. That's for sure.
Dave, can you take us through just the gathering of collectibles and ensuring that, hey, this is Patrick's jersey from last night or Travis Kelce's football from this pass, catch, touchdown, what have you? Just all in general, McCole Hardman, I should say, with the touchdown. How does all that kind of work, especially in the feverish finish of a Super Bowl like that and all the celebrating afterwards?
Yeah, it's very definitive now. The technology used, the photo matching used. I've sold collections of players who thought they had their Super Bowl jerseys, and then all of a sudden somebody else does, right? Maybe someone who had access to a locker room or something. We've had guys reach out to us and say they've had items that were like, let me call the athlete. And the athlete's like, nope, I've got it on my wall. So really the photo matching. And as you know, athletes over time, they forget things, right? Oh, that was the Super Bowl one. Oh, maybe this was. So photo matching is very important. Even if something's coming directly from the source, even if it's coming from the team or the locker room or the equipment manager, you have to be able to match it with a photograph. And the photo matching is really what causes these 6 and 7 figure valuations that we see, because, it's only worth what someone's willing to pay as long as the credibility and the probability of use. So when you can match it to a photograph from a specific player or moment, and nowadays guys are wearing more than one jersey. I wouldn't be surprised if, there was multiples of jerseys worn, perhaps in half last night and things like that. So you really need to, know exactly when the items were used. So the photo matching technology, basically what you're doing is you're looking at the hole patterns on the uniforms and you're matching it to the letters. You're looking for any repairs, any loose threads, any dirt or grass markings or, anything like that. And some of those uniforms were certainly easier matches than others. But really you're looking, everything's unique. Those whole patterns, the patterns in the jerseys with the numbers, they're very unique. Even the stitching pattern around the numbers. So if you can match all that up with nothing that doesn't match, then you've got a very likely match, and that's what adds to the value. So these players are probably not selling these jerseys. They've wisened up as well. They're not just leaving them in the locker for anyone to take. I'm sure they're holding them very tightly to them, and I'm sure they're not wanting to let them go anytime soon. I don't think really any of the players here, are looking to sell anything, but perhaps down the line, they'll eventually come to the market. And if they come to the market any sooner, I'd, really want to make sure, I'd advise anyone buying them to just make sure your source and make sure they're actually available for sale. The athlete's not going to call you, later down the road and say, hey, where'd you get that?
So, wristbands, gloves, things that players have on them. Is there a value to that? Like you said, there's no value unless somebody thinks it's valuable, but are those things pretty minimal, even if it's Jason Kelce or Patrick Mahomes with a wristband or something like gloves?
There's definitely different value levels, right? You're not going to get a premium on a glove as you will on a jersey. But for example, we sold one of Cooper Kupp's gloves, not even Super Bowl related, a few years ago. We have a partnership with the Rams, and we've got $15,000. Jerry Rice gloves, another example where you see his game used gloves going for $5,000, $10,000 plus. So the gloves are definitely an interesting item, and they're very desirable. The cleats. we've actually got a pair of Brock Purdy's cleats that he wore this year in our auction already over $3,000. I would imagine the cleats he wore last night are going to be, 10x that, and definitely the Mahomes. We have a pair of Mahomes cleats in auction right now that's already around $10,000, and it just opened. So, a lot of that. Believe it or not, the pylons. The pylons are collectible. People, I don't know what exactly they can do with them, but you can create collages. I used to work for a company, and we used to take these items and the turf and everything, and we'd make plaques, and we'd incorporate a piece of these. Mm-hmm. And now, I don't know if you've noticed, but what they've been doing with the game-used balls is they've actually been taking the balls, cutting them, and putting them in the championship rings. They've had them in the Rams rings. So now inside the ring, you get a piece of a ball used in the game. So they're really getting creative.
Dave, let's just say, and this is out there, but there's somebody that's going to come, some wingnut that's going to say, look, Taylor Swift chugged a beer with Blake Lively last night, and I have those cups. What are they worth to you?
Well, it's all about the memory in the moment, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's an item that in the short term certainly would have a nice return. And who knows, right? Maybe even for the long term with Taylor, because she's quite a popular person. Some of her clothing has sold for $5,000 plus, just clothing that was worn. So I would imagine those cups, if I had to throw a value out there, I would say several $1,000s. And who knows, if you get it soon enough to market, I could see two people fighting it upwards over $10,000.
Mm-hmm. You got to compare the lipstick on the cup. In fact, it's to make sure it's the right one. Craig?
Bright red. There's your first indicator. But how much has Travis Kelce merchandise gone up since, I guess, that's become more prominent, his relationship? I mean, have you seen anything noticeable as far as Travis Kelce products and their pricing post Taylor Swift dating and all that?
Undoubtedly. I mean, first of all, he's just become, a hotter commodity as it is, actually. We work with them, and we actually were planning on doing some things, and then when this relationship came out, his schedule got booked up very quickly, unfortunately for us. His jerseys, for example, we sold a regular season jersey this year for $37,000 once all the hype came about. His regular season jerseys were going for under $10,000 prior to that sale. Now they're going for, 15 to 20 plus per, and we obviously set the record at 36,000. We sold another one for just under 20,000. His rookie cards, another 5-10x multiplier, on that as well. So it's, as he becomes more and more popular, his value goes up. Collectibles isn't always about how good you are. It's a popularity contest too. I study these players, and you're like, this guy's technically better than that guy. Doesn't matter as long as the people are popular. That's why their value is going to increase, because you need, the certain number of people bidding. But I can't tell you how many different people I saw on social media last night who basically said, I never watch football, but Taylor wins, and Taylor this, Taylor that. Yeah. So, a lot of new folks to the hobby. And she's worldwide, just one of the biggest, stars out there. He's absolutely seen an increase in value. I mean, more than 2 to 3 times, as a result, which is very rare, when an athlete is dating someone. Typically, the athlete usually kind of overshadows, at least in some cases. I think of like Alex Rodriguez, for example, and his celebrity dating, But, in this case, Kelce's value certainly shot up.
Dave Ammerman, again, Golden's head of revenue and sports consignment. So McCole Hardman catches the game-winning touchdown. We discussed the football, maybe $100,000. If Kelce had caught it, or Mahomes had kept it and scored, would that value be more if it's a bigger name, or is it just the moment whoever catches or runs and scores the game-winning touchdown?
It absolutely will vary also by player.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely Mahomes touchdown premium, Kelce premium. There was a lot of players, you'd see a premium. Every year we look at the final out of the World Series. That's different because it's usually not a walk-off hit, right? It's usually an out, so it doesn't really matter who made the out as much as in this case where it's a game-winning play and a touchdown. So there will be an increase of value. Obviously, your Mahomes collectors are going to pay a premium, if it was a Mahomes ball. For example, Super Bowl, Tom Brady touchdown pass balls, 6 figures plus. Balls used in the game, 30, 40 grand. So clearly, a different factor there. They also number the balls now. So going back to the photo matching, now you can actually match the number on the ball because they're all individual numbered, things like that. So you can really pinpoint and make sure, because as you know, the chaos at the end of the game, where does that ball go? Who's got it? Tucked away and whatnot. we may never see the ball come out, but I do know a few cases where guys caught iconic Brady touchdowns in Super Bowls, and they actually held them and have them. One of them was even a game ball from a different player. And, they brought it out to market and, went for a big premium because it was, thrown by, a Hall of Fame caliber guy.
Dave, you mentioned Mahomes collectors. I was just curious of what that market looks like. At this point already, he's only 28 years old, but obviously, the resume speaks for itself. So what is the marketplace like for a Patrick Mahomes? How fast does it or has it grown? And do you have anything to compare it to, just at the trajectory that it's on right now?
It's a great question. Obviously, we saw him come out early in his career and, be on pace for some regular season touchdown records. Obviously, he's won some Super Bowls already. So he's continued to climb. Collecting and memorabilia selling is it's like the market, right? So at this moment, he's certainly hot, but it's all a matter of keeping that up and continuing to ascend. We saw with LeBron James, everyone wanted to wait until he passed the all-time career scoring record to sell their items, but they were worth more the year before. Just for whatever the reason, the market was better during the pandemic when he won the championship in 2020. So you don't always have to wait for them to break the milestone to get there. And I think if we look at Mahomes now, someone in a different sport who I think we can compare him to, except maybe championships aside, I look at like a Mike Trout, 3 MVPs early on, really just the top tier of his game, or at least as of a few years ago, I'm saying. And it just, his values were through the roof. So often we see a peak of a player almost midway through their career. Brady was an exception because he kept doing it and and his value did keep increasing over and over again and again and again. Now, even just for a Tom Brady autograph, you go to a signing, you're paying thousands of dollars just for Tom to sign something, and which is really kind of unheard of outside of like Michael Jordan and a few other guys. So I think Patrick Mahomes is definitely on that, he's on that trajectory, but he still has to come out and perform next year. Halfway through the year this year, his values were down a little bit. He looked like they weren't going to make it too far, and quickly the attentions were starting to focus on Brock Purdy's and Lamar Jackson's, and now all of a sudden he's won it, and it's really solidified his place in history here, and, we anticipate we're going to see a lot more. He's definitely hot. We've seen ups and downs over the years in his values due to a lot of different factors. But, now is definitely, a time to see some heights in value. Of course, we haven't seen too many sales since the game ended yesterday, but we'll continue to keep our eyes open. And we've got a bunch of items that just came in again today, even and last night, of Mahomes and other players on the Chiefs that are going to come up to auction soon. So I think over the next few weeks, really everyone should keep an eye out and just kind of see where those values go. But I'd like to think that Mahomes' value, he was a few years ago, he was one of the rare players that got an increase in value in the off season going into the next year. So players and investors have always been hot on him. So we might see a continued increase over the next few months, even though he's hot right now. What he's done, people will start thinking about, and they might continue. If you're going to buy any quarterback in the NFL, he would certainly be the guy.
Dave, if you don't mind, one more question, and thanks for your time and the knowledge and insight of all this. How did you get involved with this? Was this something as simple as you collecting baseball cards when you were a kid and you'd kind of get interested? How did you get involved in this business?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It started as baseball cards as a child, and I have an older brother who he had a good collection. I had to have a better collection, so we just kind of bought cards. I got to be honest, I didn't even watch the games as much. I couldn't tell you what's going on, but I knew the players on the cards. So it started for me, collectibles first, and then that translated into, I pulled the card of this guy. Let me go root for him now. Let me go watch. So when I every year before the season starts, I pick up a couple players, and now you've invested in all the games. It's very similar to sports betting, online now, where guys will put money on a player to win the MVP or to win the Super Bowl. So I think right now you're going to certainly have that emotion, and people, they just want somebody to root for. So some guys are in it just for collecting. Some guys are in it to make money. Others are in it, for the short term to see who they can invest in and who's going to come out and play well, and then they're going to sell quickly. But for me, lifelong collecting led me here, and I never thought I'd be selling memorabilia at my age and still in the biz. But it's a great business, and it's continuing to grow. And I used to work in finance, and I sell sports memorabilia now, and I got to be honest, I never would have thought the sports memorabilia would eventually potentially outweigh my career in finance.
Thank you very much, Dave. We appreciate what you're doing at Golden's, also for your time today. Dave Ammerman, Head of Revenue and Sports Consignment. Thanks to Olivia for setting up the interview with us as well on that and what Golden's is. And you know, you might get something in tonight, and the comparison because of what the year when somebody walked in the locker room and took Tom Brady's jersey. Remember that? We used to have access. That's gone because of that specific moment. Go ahead.
I don't really believe in reporters having locker room access anyways. Or I think that like just the whole open locker room, I won't say I don't believe in it, but after the Super Bowl like that, you can see why, we probably need to tighten up these rules a little bit. Just random people walking in and out grabbing Tom Brady's jersey, you know.
I've always thought there's got to be a better way than talking to people as they get dressed. Yeah. I mean,
fresh out of the shower.
It's just kind of an awkward thing.
Some of my best post-Super Bowl interviews were with a player that I would not have gotten otherwise on a podium, in the locker room, waiting it out and getting 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, and I get that. Like, I just thought, just functionally, there would be a better way to do it. Nobody's thought of one yet, though. So
no.
Maybe one day they will. But
I'll give you an example. Aaron Ross played at John Tyler High School, won Super Bowls with the Giants. Yeah, he would not have been on the podium. Even though they have a lot of players on the podium, I would never have had a chance to visit with him after he won a Super Bowl. Never forget that. And so that's just one example. But I do understand it was getting to the point where people were watching Brady get undressed. And might have thrown a pair of socks in the floor. Somebody picks it up, which, again, the gray, the blurry area between somebody that's in that locker room as a media member, somebody's in that locker room as a media member who's a fanboy, there's also some of that happens too. When we come back, Joseph Duarte, Oscar Giles hired by Willie Fritz at Houston, and the Cougars, they're number 3 in the country. We'll get to that and him next on 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student-athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student-athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student-athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
The text back and forth between me and Joseph Duarte earlier today was classic. I asked him to come on. He is on now. I think he's trying to tell me more than John McClain and wanted a John McClain deal, Paul. Do we give John a contract and signed agreement?
Yeah.
Hey, Joseph, thanks for when you are available. Seriously, it's been great since all the news about Houston, even, 2.5 years ago at the Big 12. So, Oscar Giles, he has coached 23 or 22 of his 25 years in the state of Texas. He's a UT guy. He's known as a really good recruiter. How much of a reaction bang is this for Houston and Willie Fritz?
It carries a lot of weight. Well, first of all, Willie Fritz has had a hard time filling that position. He originally, when he was bringing over his staff from Tulane, we thought he was going to have one of his existing staffers join him. That didn't work out. Then they went ahead and kept Brian Early, and that went on for a couple of weeks, and then he goes to Missouri. So to get somebody this late, like an Oscar Giles, that's going to carry a lot of weight. As you mentioned, his history here in the state, having been a player at a successful player at the University of Texas, and then all the many stops that he's made. And then, oh, by the way, he's on his third stop with Houston. Really, I think that's going to help them a lot because it's a familiar name. He knows the area, he knows the conference, and I think it was a home run hire considering that we're talking about moves needing to be made on staff in the middle of February.
How much more aggressive do you see them being under Willie Fritz, the hire like this, than maybe they were in the last couple of years under Dana?
Well, I mean, and you mean in terms of the aggressiveness of going out and getting players? Of getting coaches?
Yeah, getting coaches who are then going to be maybe more aggressive in getting players than they kind of had been.
Well, if you're Willie, you're hoping that you're not going to have to be making too many coaching hires here because you want to kind of keep that staff together, and that was one of the big things in the 2 years that Tom Herman was here. They had a really good staff and they stayed together. You look at basketball with Kelvin, and he's had the assistants in place for most of his 10 years. So if you can get your staff like that in place, that helps build those relationships. And the interesting thing, guys. Willie was wrapping up signing day, and he mentioned some of the responsibilities that are going into the staff and how they want to divide up the recruiting areas. And they sort of consider Houston like a big pie, and each of the 10 coaches are going to get a slice of Houston, whether you're on the north side, south side, or out in the Katy area, west. And then they're going to hit Houston heavy. So I think by having coaches in place that know the state, know the city, and then you bring in somebody like Oscar Giles, who you don't skip a beat. It's all gonna trickle down, and I think that's gonna help them immensely when it comes to getting guys from the area and keeping that top talent. Will he be the Sack Avenue of Brian Early? I don't know if they keep that or how that. It's just a nickname. If they can get the type of players that they've gotten on that line just in the last 5 years, they'll be in pretty good shape.
I guess the only position I don't see listed is tight ends. Is that just falling under somebody's umbrella, or is that a hire they still have yet to make?
No, they're at 10. Okay. They haven't necessarily broken down all the responsibilities.
Gotcha.
But if I'm not mistaken, I think Kevin Barbay may may do a little bit with the tight ends as well, the OC.
So with recruiting signing date done, moving forward, in the end, with the amount of time that he had, how would you grade what Willie Fritz and his staff accomplished?
I give him a high B+, A-, and that's based on two things. When at the lowest point, Dana was about number 106 nationally in recruiting. This was in mid-November. That was last among the Power Five, and that was the reason the school president, Renew Couture, said that there had to be a change in the coaching position, because the quote was, I want to have hope. And when I saw that 103, 106, I didn't have any hope for the future. So that was an indictment right there. And then Dana on Halloween on his radio show goes out and says the ship has sailed on the 2024 high school recruiting. And that didn't resonate very well with the fan base. So for Willie Fritz to come in to get 14 high school players, including one from Alabama who's a 4-star running back on the second to last day of the February signing period here, that showed a lot. And I think they finished in the composite maybe upper 50s, maybe 60. And to go from that, where they were, to that, you got to give Willie Fritz a lot of credit. And you could tell there's little subtle jabs that he takes where, he made a comment. He said, there's two things I like. I like to coach and I like to recruit. And we knew Dana didn't like to recruit. And some would have said he didn't much care for coaching in the last year plus as well. So I give them an A- to a B+ for what they did in such a short amount of time.
Joseph, Houston had the loss at Kansas, which honestly, I was at the game there at Allen Fieldhouse. They didn't play badly. It's just Kansas didn't miss any shots. Turned the ball over 3 times. They've come off that with 2 straight wins. They head into their week off here essentially before they play Texas this weekend. What do you think about the bounce back after their first trip as a conference member to Allen Fieldhouse?
Well, there aren't going to be many that shoot 70%. So you got that going for you. But yeah, I mean, this has been a Kelvin Sampson team that they've lost back-to-back twice in the last, I believe it's 7 years or 6 years. And he joked that he was like, well, winning streaks in the Big 12 are one win. You don't get on much of a run in this league because you got to take one game at a time. But for them to bounce back with the Oklahoma State game and then the Cincinnati one, I thought on the road. And you don't shoot very well in the first half, and you pull out a nice win. There's a quad 1 win. I think that really kind of says really what they have to do really down the stretch. They're going to have to dig deep. They're not a great shooting team, and they rely on the rebounding and the defense. But, all things said, they're in sole position of first place. 4 of the last 7 are ranked teams, which, is pretty much what the Big 12 presents you. So this is going to be an interesting race. I think, and Kelvin said that the champion's probably going to have 5 or 6 losses, and right now Houston has 3 at the top. So this will be interesting. The last little less than a month of the season.
Joseph, I don't think that Brett Yormark can find you. I know he can find Mac Rhodes and Kelvin Sampson based off the last week or so, but I know he had some fun with that. But just from your perspective of where he was coming from and what you've seen so far, do you think it was time for some folks to speak up about Big 12 officiating?
Yeah, and Mac, having some history with Mac Rhodes, I thought that was pretty good. I mean, anytime you can get somebody in a leadership position that's going to go to bat for their head coach and really for the league. I mean, knowing Mac, I know his interests are Baylor, but I mean, he sends a message across the board. And yes, we tried to have a little fun with Kelvin. I was sort of served up as the sacrificial lamb there. Trying to get his thoughts on the ejection, and he joked that he learned from Mac Rhodes that you say something it's going to cost you $25,000. I told him I was willing to throw in $50 for the fine, and that wasn't going to give me much of an answer. So, but I do believe that you look at the way the fouls were going in that game, and just too blatant prior to the ejection. he wanted to send a message without necessarily relaying it through the message. I think the point was it came across very loud and clear on television, and really they're going to have to look at that, because I believe there was a report out there that mentioned that the Big 12 is maybe one of, or if not the only league that doesn't grade the officials. You've got to do something about that. You've got to hold some accountability. And I saw another thing where they've got some officials that are going back-to-back games. Or there was one instance where a guy did like 12 straight games in 12 straight days. That's sort of a little bit of unusual how they assign games. So, it was an interesting week, not a very good week for the Big 12 on the officiating, and that's something that I think they're going to have to take a hard look at come the offseason here.
Yeah, there's no question. Mac hired Kelvin at Houston. He loves Kelvin Sampson, and vice versa. That I think Kelvin looked for the perfect opportunity to have Mac's back, but without saying anything to get him fined. But I love the fact that I've learned from Mac Rhodes, if you tell the truth, it's going to cost you $25,000 or whatever the quote. And I watched that post game press conference, and you did what you could, Joseph. You tried to get him, but he did not take the bite. So or the bait. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it. Should be another hell of a week. We are at the midway point or just past it in the Big 12, and Houston right there at the very top. Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle, with us on Willie Fritz, adding Oscar Giles, the recruiting that he did, and also Kelvin Sampson and Houston. Speaking of basketball, here are the games. Let's go to the games first tonight. There's a couple of games within the Big 12. And you know what? Kansas has to turn around. They played last week on a Monday against Kansas State. They're on the road. That was for Texas Tech's ranking, but they're not ranked. That's the 8 o'clock tip on ESPN. West Virginia playing in Fort Worth against TCU, who slipped a little bit. Those are tonight's games. Here are the standings among the teams that are ranked at 500 or better with their record in the conference. Houston, Iowa State, KU, Baylor, Texas Tech, and then Oklahoma has made a nice little run to get themselves above 500. BYU and TCU are both 5-5 if you want to go down to 500 or better.
It'll be interesting to see who rolls out there for Kansas tonight. McCullough's
not playing.
McCullough's not playing. He can barely go. And we don't know about DeJuan Harris, so that's two starters that are out with a team that's not deep.
Tweaked his ankle in that game late against Baylor. You're right.
So we don't know about DeJuan Harris, but if he's out, that's not going to be good, especially going into Lubbock, a place that's really tough to play, and Kansas not been good on the road anyway. So it will be interesting to see. Again, the Big 12 is just going to beat each other up until this thing is over in March.
How many losses? Sampson has said 5 or 6. There are, for Houston, they have 7 games left. Go back to the top part of it, Garrett, if you don't mind. There are 7 games left for Houston, 8 for Iowa State, 7 for KU. Then Baylor has, 8 along with Tech, and 7 for Oklahoma. How many losses, and there might be 1 or 2 teams at the top that are tied, will the Big 12 regular season champion have when it's all said and done after 18 games?
I think 5 or 6, like Kelvin Sampson said. I mean, like maybe 7. But look, I mean,
no, not 7.
I don't think 7. But look, they. So yeah, I don't know. It's just again that sledgehammer. I'm going to say 6. I think 5 or 6, but I think that's about the number that somebody will have. And remember, a lot of them are going to play each other. But Houston right now just a half game ahead of Iowa State, who's playing really well, and right now just a half a game back. Top 25 teams around the country. There we have UConn, Purdue. Houston moves up to 3. North Carolina falls to 7. KU at 6. Then you have Iowa State inside the top 10. Then 3 Big 12 teams right outside of it or in the top 25 with Baylor, BYU, and also Oklahoma. There we are with the top 25.
Yeah, there's Arizona at 5.
Future Big 12 team,
a team that would be moving in. But yeah, it's a nice little, set of rankings there, and I guess you put the whole top 10 there. Is that right? Yeah, the whole top 10. So yeah, I mean, Iowa State's playing good ball. I mean, Baylor's obviously been up and down, just with the close finishes, going their way sometimes not going their way. But it's a hell of a league, and I guess, Tech dropped out of the rankings. So you got Oklahoma there right at the very edge there, balancing on being ranked or not. But, yeah, I mean, it's a healthy list, and still anybody's fight to go up and grab that championship. A long way to go, and yet not really that long of a way to go at this point in mid-February. So getting into crunch time, and, I think probably 5, at most 6 wins will be who you see at the top of the conference when it comes to losses. I don't think, you can get past 6, and there's not a lot of room to do that. But, I mean, Big 12 basketball is a beast for sure.
Kansas won it last year, the regular season. UT won the tournament. Kansas last year won the conference regular season with a 13-5 record. And then you add into the mix of Houston, Cincinnati, BYU, and also UCF. All right, when we come back, Kansas City Chiefs have won their 4th all-time Super Bowl. They won back in Super Bowl IV when they upset the Purple People Eaters, Bud Grant, and the Minnesota Vikings with Len Dawson and many others. Now they've won 3 of the last 5 with Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid and company. We'll hear from Jeff Lebo. He covers the Kansas City Chiefs for Sports Radio 810. He's out of Kansas City. Todd Lebo, excuse me. Jeff Lebo played basketball at North Carolina. Todd Lebo on the Chiefs, and what's it like in Kansas City right now? This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they are the people that you can count on. They're the people that I've counted on, and thousands of Central Texans and people beyond the Central Texas area have counted on over the years for great customer service, great pricing on their vehicles, and great opportunities to get into brand new vehicles as well. And right now, you've got that opportunity. A lot of great cars and a lot. Matter of fact, driving around earlier today, a lot of the construction that's just been a mess out in front of Richard Carr's dealership is starting to clear out a little bit. It's a little bit easier to get on over to see the people that you can count on. And right now is a good time because they're celebrating 25 years in Waco this next month in March. The party is starting now, though, with big anniversary sale savings, which means that you can save thousands on GMC Sierra SLT crew cabs right now. You can also, as qualified buyers, get 1.9% financing for 72 months, and military and first responders can also save an additional $500 as well. So make sure to take advantage of the 25th anniversary sales savings over at Richard Carr Motors right now, and take a look at the GMC Sierra SLT crew cab where you can save hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. Also, Richard Carr trades for the best, so if you're not looking to get into a brand new vehicle, they have a lot full of quality pre-owned cars and trucks for you to check out as well. 100 used cars and trucks in stock, all inspected with a 172-point inspection and that Richard Carr seal of approval, plus a financing goal of 100% credit approval, as they say yes when others say no. So check out the dealership, in business for 25 years in Central Texas, and over that time, having built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Run by proud Central Texans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected. Get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Petty Clinic Waco and reach out to the Petty Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Petty to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pettycliniclowt.com.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
By the way, thanks to Austin Rushing, Super Chat. What is this sickness this is going around? Stuck at home, feeling groggy. Glad the show is on. So nice to listen while I'm bored in bed. So Austin, hope you're feeling better or you get better. Thank you very much for the Super Chat on 365 Sports. Todd Lebo, Sports Radio 810, Kansas City. Chiefs are world champions again. And a dynasty, that's the word you use when you win 3 or 4 out of what they've done, 3 out of 5, and played at another one. Todd, thanks for your time. What's it like? Are people groggy from the celebration, or is everyone lit up right now?
Oh, there was definitely some grogginess today. The celebration was pretty wild last. It's old hat, I guess. I mean, it seems old hat to us who have been covering them. It's like, okay, fine, this is what you do, blah, blah, blah. But there was pretty nice weather last night as well. So downtown Kansas City was pretty wild. People running around, having a good time. And the parade. I'm curious. They have a parade coming on Wednesday. I would think less people would go to that because the parade's a parade. It's really not. It's a big crowd of people, and you know they drive down the street and they yell and scream, and then they do the exact same speeches on stage. I guess the same number of people will go to that because it's going to be like 57 degrees on Wednesday. But I don't know. I mean, I don't want to go to it, but I'm working, so it's a different deal entirely. You know,
Todd. This was probably, in my estimation, the last year where for a while, this team will probably struggle on offense at any point because they'll probably get that fixed. And they still managed a way to do it. What is the appreciation in Kansas City for the reason they're able to do it, Patrick Mahomes?
Oh, he's off the charts. I mean, he could run for whatever office you wanted here. He is beloved by everybody because he does a lot of things right on the field, obviously, but he's also very good off the field, and he handles everything, very classy manner. But you're right. I think this year it took him a while to figure the offense out, but then Rashee Rice has turned into like a blooming star. So it looks like they might have a guy who listen, he may not be Tyreek Hill, who is, but they've just won 2 Super Bowls without Tyreek Hill, and they did. What they got for Tyreek Hill turned into draft picks who have been very good players for them. So the appreciation for Mahomes is through the roof. And everyone last night just felt like if they got the ball at the end of the game, they were going to at least get a field goal, if not score a touchdown, which they did. And if the Niners were held to a field goal, there's no chance in the world they weren't going to get down and at least get a field goal. And they went and scored a touchdown. The belief is just there on that edge for Mahomes. And if that hasn't always been the case, listen, he's lost plenty of games. They lost 4 times at home this year. And they had a chance at the end of some of those games to do things, and it didn't come through. But the bigger the games got, the more important they got. They got first downs and did things. My doorbell is broken, by the way. There's nobody at my door. If you can hear the doorbell ring, it's going to ring like 4 times. I don't like it. But Mahomes just has been making those plays, and this was probably his crowning achievement last night, that he was able to get that done in that situation, because he didn't have one of those kind of drives yet in his career. And that's the kind of stuff that you dream about, walking a Super Bowl off in the first ever overtime that went this far. So he's the king of Kansas City for sure.
Todd, everybody spent a week or 2 weeks talking up how they figured that game was going to go and who was going to win and all that. And we know San Francisco were slight favorites going in, and that was at least some partial motivating factor for Kansas City. But as far as the game itself, what stood out to you? I mean, you mentioned the ending obviously stands out in the comeback, but did that game, the matchup, kind of go about how you expected, or was there a little bit of a surprise there and how it all unfolded for you?
Well, I thought the Chiefs were in real trouble if they were going to be minus in turnovers. And it turned out they were even in turnovers, and they got a turnover that they scored on right away in one play, and they still had to go overtime. So I think I kind of read the game right that way, because the Chiefs aren't good enough. There were games in 2018 or 19 where they could be -2 in turnovers and win by 20 points. You know what I mean? They're not that on offense. They had to be clean on turnovers or even, and that's what they did for the most part in the postseason. I mean, they were +3 in turnovers against the Ravens and won the game by 7 points. The 2019 Chiefs would have won that game by 4 touchdowns if they were +3. So they did all those things right. In the defense, Steve Spagnuolo, I thought, did a really nice job of dialing up the right pressures at the right time. They had 2 critical third down stops that led to the field goals at the end for the Niners. The one in overtime where Chris Jones burst through and Purdy ended up throwing it long. But even a bigger one was the one right at the 2-minute warning, because if the Niners had gotten a first down on that play, the game's over. They're going to be able to leave the clock out. The Chiefs use their 2 timeouts, and then maybe the kid misses a field goal, maybe he doesn't, but they're walking this thing off. And he brought Trent McDuffie on a blitz, and Purdy didn't see him coming, and McDuffie made the play and blocked the pass. Those were tremendous plays, and the Chiefs had done a really good job this year of figuring out the right time to make those blitzes. And it's so funny. Football is just weird. The Chiefs did not do a good job at the turnover ratio this year. And many times it was like they just couldn't pick the ball up. They wouldn't land on it. The ball's laying on the ground, and they couldn't pick it up. And last night, that was a very difficult fumble recovery on the punt that Jalen Watson dove on. You're running full speed. And George Karlaftis on the play where McCaffrey fumbled in the first drive didn't try to do anything stupid. He just dove on the ball. There were probably 3 times this year where a Chiefs player tried to pick the ball up and do something, and they fumbled it away, and the other team got the ball back. They got smart. I think they coached that. You can't coach turnovers. You coach the principles of it. And I think they had coached it. Listen, don't be a hero. Get the ball. The ball is more important than anything else. And those were big, big plays last night. Falling on the ball and those 2 big third downs. And that's what the Chiefs needed, because if they didn't make any one of those plays, they'd probably lose the game.
I saw numerous quotes and also the transcripts in the post game about what Kansas City and how for 2 weeks it was slammed into their head about overtime, that the rules were different in the Super Bowl. And then I was stunned to see where there were 49ers players that said they thought it was the regular overtime rules. Did that surprise you too?
Absolutely shocked me. I mean, that is 1,000% on the 49ers staff for not getting the rules across to their players. Patrick Mahomes has told us a few times in the last few weeks, I guess it's maybe Saturday night, they have this really boring meeting where they go over all this really mundane stuff. And sometimes guys zone it out, but he's like, it's important. All of it's important. This time, with this time left on the clock, this is the rule in overtime. You need to do this. This is how we play the game and the way we operate it. And the Chiefs, sometimes meetings can be boring, right? These guys just want to play football. They don't want to practice. They don't want to have meetings. But little details like that absolutely make a difference. Now, that's not why the Niners lost the game. They lost the game because they didn't make a stop, but they should know the rules. But I'm telling you guys, you get there and cover these athletes all the time. Guys on offense don't know what defensive players do. Guys on defense don't know what offense players do. Sometimes guys who play on the offensive line don't have a clue what someone is doing out on the wide receiver. They just kind of know their job and go about it. But that's a failure, and I think the Niners don't look very good right now with their players actively admitting they didn't know what was going on.
Todd, what is the biggest offseason issue you see for the Chiefs? Is it Chris Jones? Is it getting another wide receiver to match with Rashee Rice? They have decent amount of cap room, and you would think some guys like Marquez Valdez-Scantling, they could save $12 million after June 1st cut, might be on the outs anyway. What do you think they do?
Well, Chris Jones is obviously a big deal. Also is L'Jarius Sneed. L'Jarius Sneed was a late round draft pick. He's played 4 years. They could put a tag on him, but the cornerback tag is huge. That's a big number. I think they would like to have both of those guys on the team, but I'm not sure you can do that. They got a little bit of salary cap space, but maybe not enough for 2 mega contracts. In my mind, everyone I asked, if you had to have one or the other, Chris Jones is older than L'Jarius Sneed, but they all tell me, take the big guys. The big guys don't grow on trees. L'Jarius Sneed is a perfect example of, hey, here's the guy the Chiefs drafted in the 4th round who is playing at a Pro Bowl level. He's not the only one either. They got a lot of guys who they drafted late who have played really good for them at cornerback. You can't find how many guys in the league can do what Chris Jones does. 5, maybe? And so if you find a way to do something with Chris Jones, and I think he gets it. I don't know if you saw the video that the Chiefs put out on social media last night with Andy Reid basically on top of him on the field, yelling, how about that? I mean, Andy Reid's a big dude, and he was on the ground. They had to lift him off of him. I think he wants Chris Jones here, and I think Chris Jones, if he doesn't know it by now, he's seen a lot of guys leave. And Tyreek Hill's having a good time sitting in Miami, but he's been watching the Super Bowl 2 years in a row.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Chris Jones had the house in Miami. You know what I mean? He loves that town. But if he goes down there, they're not winning a Super Bowl. That team's not winning a Super Bowl. I think if you want to go to the Super Bowl and win a Super Bowl, hanging around Patrick Mahomes may be the smartest move that you can make because he seems to get there.
What about Andy Reid, who now has 3 Super Bowl titles, and there's a very short list to do of coaches, and he has been close so many times, had the great run in Philly, but not great enough, and then knocking on the door and eventually getting Mahomes in Kansas City to take the next level. Is he a beloved figure? And then going back to Todd, when he arrived in Kansas City after a nice run in Philadelphia, was he the overwhelming favorite that people wanted, or was it somebody else?
Well, there were some doubts. I mean, I don't know who you would have hired. There were a lot of names out there at that point, but things had fallen off the rails in Philadelphia. He'd gone 5-11, and he had the death of his son at training camp. All those things. It was almost like when he got hired, a lot of people were like, maybe you should take a year. You know what I mean? And chill. But here's the deal. I've been covering him since 2013 now. This is all the guy likes. He just likes football. He just wants to coach football. He just wants to draw plays up. He's got some interests outside of there, but you don't see Andy Reid running around town doing anything. He just likes football. And so when people keep asking him about retiring, he said it again this morning. He's like, I'm not going anywhere. I don't think he has any other interest. I don't know what he would do to occupy his time. This is what he does. Did you ever see Bill Belichick running around having fun doing anything in the off season? No, this is what he did too. I mean, you guys cover the Big 12. Remember when Bill Snyder retired?
Yep.
It didn't take. He didn't have anything else to do, and eventually he came back. That's what I think Andy Reid is. But he's certainly beloved here. But you don't see him out and about. He's a very private person. So I think he's been seen in the wild about 3 times in Kansas City. He just works and he grinds, and he goes to California for a little bit in the off season and sits in his office and draws plays up. And that doesn't seem like a very fun life for me. But if you're a football fan, that's exactly what you want your coach to do.
All right, Todd, if I went to the Kansas City Council and said, I think you guys should have a Patrick Mahomes, and it's the City of Fountains, a Patrick Mahomes fountain that sits and overlooks the city like Christ the Redeemer, do you think it could get done?
Absolutely. They put it to a vote of the city council, the county legislature, the people, whatever it costs. Forget about the schools, forget about the police. They would all vote yes for it. I mean, it's unbelievable. And listen, you guys covered him. Did you think this was happening when he was at Tech? I didn't. I watched the guy lose a whole bunch of football games at Tech. Now, he was always the best player on his team and didn't have enough talent around him, but I had no clue that he would be this good. But they saw something in him that at least 9 teams in front didn't see. And it's just happy he's here, and he just pushes all the right buttons, like I said. I mean, he owns part of the Kansas City Royals. He owns part of Sporting Kansas City, the MLS team here. His wife owns part of the NWSL team here. He put $250,000 for this city to have the College Baseball Hall of Fame that's going to open in a couple of years. There's no reason for the College Baseball Hall of Fame to be here. It should be in Omaha. But Kansas City won the bid probably because Patrick Mahomes is behind it. I mean, the guy, everything he does just works. It's amazing to me that this is where it is. And I've lived here my whole life. For 50 years, this football franchise never did anything. And now there's going to be another parade, and it's almost boring. Almost.
In fact, they won, what was it, Super Bowl IV when they beat the Vikings, and never – I mean, there were some teams that were pretty good, but you're right.
No, they made one AFC championship game in that whole time. And here's my life, okay? So that game happened on January 11th, 1970, the 69 season. I was born on February 1st, 1970, so I was not alive. I was 3 weeks from being born, and I spent my 50th birthday in Miami, Florida, the day before they won their first one in 2019, 2020 season. And I thought that was going to be like, wow, it took 50 years and they won it, and I covered it and it was there. And now they've been 3 more times and won 2 more Super Bowls. And it seems like that was yesterday, but it just keeps going. And we asked everyone on Radio Row this past week, how many Super Bowls is this guy going to win? And nobody said 2 because he already had 2. Everyone was like 5 or 6 or 7. There doesn't really seem to be an end in sight for this. Now, remember, Tom Brady went 10 years without winning one.
Yep.
So there could be some sort of a drought. They win a couple times, but they didn't win them. So you can't take it for granted. It's very difficult to do. But if you start with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you're starting ahead of everybody else in the AFC to get there. And if you just get a couple of breaks and the right things happen, then you can go the rest of the way and win this thing. And it's funny, Patrick is a very dedicated and driven guy. And you ask him something about it, I mean, he will bring up the fact that he's 0-2 versus Tom Brady in the postseason. And so, like catching Tom Brady, he made it harder on himself by losing to him twice, and he'll never get a chance to beat him. So I think in his mind, he's going to have to win like 8 Super Bowls to even consider that he's better than Tom Brady. And even if he won 6, he'd be, God, I lost twice to Tom Brady. He could already be tied with Tom Brady had he beaten him in those games. And Tom Brady would have 2 less, and he could have 2 more.
I was at the one in Tampa, the Super Bowl, when Brady was with the Buccaneers, and, I mean, the Buccaneers' defense just harassed him.
It was bad. The Chiefs' offensive line had lost 4 starters.
Yep.
And everyone in Kansas City was like, what's no big deal? They got Patrick Mahomes and Tyreek Hill. And he ran around like a crazy man, throwing sidearm passes off people's face masks, and they just couldn't catch him. Just an awful night. But, that resets you and says, hey, you've got to get your mind right and do things a little bit differently. And they were able to shore up that offensive line and get some better players. But that was an awful deal. When you lose both of your tackles, and then, lost Eric Fisher, the left tackle, in the title game right before that. And it was a rough night, but that one right there is going to sting him forever. And that's how Mahomes is. He might win 6 and he'll go, God, Brady beat my brains out that one time. You know what I mean? And it will stick with him. But that's what competitors are like. You don't think it bothers Tom Brady to lost to the Giants twice?
Sure.
He's like stinking Eli Manning, who only made the playoffs like twice in his life. That freaking bothers Tom Brady. And he's the best of all time.
He lost to Nick Foles. I had to watch that one in person.
That's right. Yeah.
I mean, that one just has to chap his ass in a way that I wouldn't imagine.
Oh, for sure. I mean, but then again, in my mind, Brady should thank his lucky stars he won his first 3 because he didn't do much in most of the games, but they won him. You know what I mean? And Patrick hasn't played all that great in the Super Bowl. He threw for 300 yards last night. That's the first time he's done that. He was pretty pedestrian in the first win over the Niners, threw a couple interceptions. And against Philly, he was hobbled last year. They needed a defensive score. But they just do all those things the right way. He doesn't have like Joe Montana's Super Bowl numbers. I mean, he threw another pick last night, a horrible pick. Threw a couple in the first one. His quarterback rating, which I don't love that number. His QBR last night was off the chain, but his quarterback rating has not been great in Super Bowl. But he's a quarterback, and they win the games. And he's won 3 Super Bowl MVPs, and he's stuck in Disney World right now, or Disneyland. Bleary-eyed. He looked so tired at the press conference this morning at 8:30 Vegas time. Oh my God. Up all night, and they make you go to that press conference because you won the MVP. It's almost like, I don't want to win the MVP. Send somebody else.
Send somebody else. What's great about it is that the fact that, he did throw for 300 yards, but almost 5 quarters. But that's not to take away that when they needed the drive to the end of regulation and they needed the drive in overtime, he led them 75 yards both times to win it. And He is
with
just
his arm
special.
and his leg.
Yep, and I was going to bring that up. He's not known as a Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or someone like that, but the one thing about him, about 2 to 5 times a game, he comes up with that run, and it's not like it's blazing, but he's an athlete, and he came up with a few of those, I thought, yesterday or last night in the fourth quarter when they needed it the most. He's
just fast enough to give – people take bad angles on him. I mean, Fred Warner is as good as it gets. And the longer run there, it was in overtime. Warner just took a terrible angle, and he got like 10 more yards. So he's just fast enough. He knows just when to run. And like the 4th and 1 play in overtime, he's like, I'm keeping the ball. And, you know, he just did it. So he's smart when it comes to those things. It's amazing. You run out of words for it. You really do. It's wild. And you just pinch yourself because it had been 50 years. And who's to think it's going to end? But like we said this all the time, like Aaron Rodgers is a great player. He's only gone to one Super Bowl, and he's not going to another one. I don't think the Jets are going to a Super Bowl. So you just got to take it. You got to be thankful for everyone you get. And I tell people all the time, just enjoy a game in October. You know, don't get too complacent when you just want to get to the Super Bowl. You have to enjoy going to Arrowhead Stadium and watching this guy play because it will end someday. It may be 15 years from now or something like that, but it's going to end. And whoever they get next, it ain't going to be as good.
No.
It's just not going to be as good. Look at the Patriots. They couldn't make the playoffs anymore. They're running through quarterbacks like nobody's business.
Clark Hunt at the top, obviously Reed, and then what they do as an administration, and also then to have the Reed and then also Patrick Mahomes. The alignment they have in that organization and franchise is amazing. Thank you, Todd. Enjoy it. Appreciate your time. Good luck covering that parade. And
all right, we'll and rain. We'll be good to go. I think we have good weather coming. That's the most important part.
I hope so. I do hope so. That's Todd Lebo, joined us, Sports Radio 810, one of the longest-running sports radio shows in the country out of Kansas City as they celebrate the Chiefs winning 4th overall, 3rd in 5 years with Patrick Mahomes.
Here we come, Cowboys. Knock, knock.
Hey, the 50-year thing does give Washington, Cleveland, well, there are 0 years because they didn't, and then also even the Cowboys. But you know what's weird? San Francisco has knocked on this door 3 times or so since '94 when they won it?
Yep.
Hasn't it been 3 times?
Yep.
Knocking on that door to get to 6 as a franchise, and they lost the lead last night. They lost the lead the last time they played Kansas City. And then I can't remember what the other one might have been, but they have been right there on the edge.
New Orleans is the Ravens.
The Ravens.
It's a tight game, and then
but they can't get that 6th one, and that's got to be frustrating. And you never know when you kind of get that rap, even though Shanahan's a hell of a coach, that can live with you for quite some time.
Yeah, Texas fans had a shot at a national title and then an alum coaching in the Super Bowl and fell just short of that double dip, but it was still a really good year. But, yeah, just came up short in both of those categories. And for Kyle Shanahan, he'll be back. I mean, I've no doubts he'll get another crack. Now, I don't know if he's going to have multiple opportunities at this point because you just can't say for sure. And you look at that roster and you look at Kansas City's roster, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's like this whole salary cap discussion. It's amazing how well put together those teams are. I mean, you look at he's got Debo and McCaffrey and Ayuk. And it's just like, what are we doing here? Just so talented. So they'll be back. I'm sure of it, and I know Kansas City's going to be back. I'll bet my life savings on the fact that they'll be back. Maybe not next year, but that wouldn't surprise me either. So, yeah, good times in Kansas City. They just re-signed Bobby Witt, too. That was one of the things when you guys were gone. He and Patrick Mahomes are quite a little headlining duo for a two pro team town. You've got those two as your headliners, and that's pretty damn good because Bobby Witt's a young star and Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes. But, yeah, congrats to the Chiefs. They're not hateable just yet, although I think for some people they probably are. I know obviously some people are turned off by the Taylor Swift thing. That doesn't bother me. I like Patrick and I like a lot of other guys that are on that team. I'm fans of or enjoy watching them play, and so I am okay. I didn't need them to win last night, want them to win last night. I just was in for a good game, honestly. I really had no dog in the fight whatsoever. If I leaned a certain way, I guess I slightly leaned Kansas City because of Patrick Mahomes, but they're fun to watch, and they're going to be around for a really long time. And I think they have they haven't quite hit that full hate mode yet, right? Although I think that they're probably getting there pretty quick the way that they're winning right now, and maybe not too long before they get there. But Patrick's an awfully likable guy. I know Kelsey had the dust up with Andy Reid that bothered, some people.
It did not bother Andy Reid.
It did not bother Andy Reid, he said after the game. But you just know that Kelsey can't sneeze wrong without somebody now looking to make him out to be a dirtbag or something because he's so high profile.
For Taylor.
Exactly
he's
right. Exactly right. Yeah. So he's got a huge target on his back, but they're a likable team, and which is nice. So it is nice, especially because we're going to see more of them. That's for sure.
That's for sure. And there was even a thought on our guest earlier, Dave Emmerman, and Goldens was talking about Kelsey's jersey was probably worth, let's say, $250,000 or more. But that if it was his last game he ever played, it would be like double the amount. So there's that.
Why is there returement talk with him?
Well, maybe there's something that he said.
I know, but I'm just asking in general because he got asked that. I know. Just asking in general because he was in the post game and he was asked amongst the handful of questions you get to ask. It was one of those like, "Are you going to be back next year?" And it's like, really, like that's where your first thought goes. I don't know. I don't think of him like being 47 years old and having to retire soon, but I know he's played a lot of snaps and all that. I feel like he's at his very peak right now. It would be kind of odd to go and retire, but maybe there's something I'm missing there. I don't know. A
couple of things from last night. One more note or two about the Super Bowl. Usher performed at halftime. This is from Joe Pompliano. Again, he's a really good follow. The impact of his Super Bowl performance, Spotify streams are up 550%. Concert ticket prices are up 40%. TickPick says 38% of the total tickets they have sold for Usher's upcoming tour came after his performance at Super Bowl 58. He did not get paid for that. You pay. He did that so he could promote. And a lot of the halftime entertainment, I guess you could say entertainment does that to promote what they have coming up.
Well, it looks like it's been worth it for him. I enjoyed the show thoroughly. I took it as the apology for the Atlanta Super Bowl debacle. And you look at most of the artists that walked out there with him, Ludacris, Jermaine Dupri, Lil Jon, all Atlanta guys. It was good. I mean, Craig made a point during the break that they just kind of sing a medley of their songs, so you can't get too invested in things. But I thought the showmanship of it was really good. And, I'm a big Ludacris guy, so I love seeing him. So,
yeah, I'm glad to see a lot of the guys who I'm probably the same age as or was definitely in my wheelhouse. I'd say Usher was definitely in my wheelhouse, and Lil Jon and all of that was very much high school, college years. So I'm in the demo, very much in the demo of what they're targeting with the halftime performances at this point. And, yeah, I enjoyed it, but I did have the thought of, like, he's just speeding through every hit he's ever had. So, hits, and 15 seconds later, it's on to the next one. And I don't know. You got a big catalog. You want to show it and show why you're the halftime performer and all of the big hits that you had. But it's like, damn, can you let it breathe for a second? Like you're doing two lines and then on to the next, and then two lines and on to the next, and then two. And it just felt very much like just flying through your entire catalog. But that's fine. It didn't make me dislike it. It was just a thought that I had of like, is this kind of what the Super Bowl halftime show is or has become? Because I haven't always really thought of it that way, but now I start to look back at the last few performances. I'm like, yeah, everybody just basically flies through their greatest hits as fast as possible in the time that they're allotted, which is fine.
One song got 15 seconds.
Yeah, I found that to be weird. It's like he could have just done like 3 songs and killed it. He didn't have to do 15 songs and make sure that they all got in there. So that's not even a gripe. That was just my only kind of thought on the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, he's been doing a residency in Vegas, so it's not like he's just, dusting off the dance shoes and hasn't been doing anything. He's been very active, but you can tell that this was the launch of like the next level that he wants to take because he's about to go out on tour and he's got the big Super Bowl performance and now he's going to launch into a new album and all these things. So that was a good way to kick all that off for Usher for sure.
Well, Alicia Keys was involved in that and she seems to like pop up along the way. There were some songs that I like and again that's not my go-to time. Here I asked, did you get the other tweet, Garrett?
Yeah, I have it.
But before you show it, I asked, out of a 4-hour and 8-minute Super Bowl 58, the core broadcast, how many or how much of that time was Taylor Swift seen on camera? Kim said 18 minutes or blah, 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 under 5 minutes. Paxton said a half an hour. Here is what, again, Joe Pompliano showed, that out of 4 hours and 8 minutes of the broadcast, Taylor Swift was actually on camera for 54 seconds.
Yeah, they only show like a couple seconds of her and reaction shots, and then they move on.
Including chugging a beer.
I think that was even in the, I think somebody just put that on social media.
I agree. That wasn't actually
on the broadcast.
Yeah.
But big props to her for doing that. It's not as long. So when you hear people complaining about it, it's I don't like these croutons on my salad. So take them off, man. It's not the whole salad.
Well, I'm glad that he gave credit to the proper person because not everybody always does that, but he admitted he took that off Reddit. So JP Analyst, the person who put that together, I'm glad that credit was given there. I want the originators of the content. It gets passed around so much now, it's 10 places away, and the person who, the 10th person is the one that gets all the credit for it. So I'm glad that he did that. Yeah, it does. It happens a lot. Good job by JP Analyst, and then I guess Joe to spread that out. I actually thought they weren't showing her very much at all. I thought that, halfway through that game, I thought that they had really been kind of mild with it. I thought we would see her a lot more than we saw her, so I was totally fine with it. I'm not somebody that was, oh my God, I can't believe they're showing her again. I went in just thinking we're probably going to see a lot of Taylor Swift, and about halfway through, I realized we really hadn't seen too much, and I wondered if that was the flow of the game because there wasn't a lot of celebration to be had.
Didn't see a lot of her boyfriend either.
There wasn't a lot of Travis Kelce catches and big Chiefs scores, but then you started to see her more at the end, but I didn't feel like it was overkill at all.
I would bet you 10 seconds of it was at the very end of the broadcast where she was down on the field.
Slipping her tongue?
Yeah.
I don't know if that
count?
I don't even know if that, I don't think that was a part of the original broadcast.
Okay, so that was the longest time
where 30, 45 seconds.
Where they kissed and she walked off with him was the longest stretch they actually showed of her, so.
Kim, personally, I could care less about her, but she was on more than 54 seconds after the game. The game broadcast, the 4 hours and 8 minutes of the time where they started the game until it ended, that was the post game. But she was on there as he went to hug his mother and then also hugged his girlfriend.
Yeah, they had the big kiss moment and the hugs and all that. So that was not counting that, obviously, like you pointed out. But they definitely got the money shots for the Taylor Travis romance there at the end, and the corporation, CBS in this case, definitely got what they wanted, and I guess everybody else that had their cameras out for all of that. So that was all captured and was, to be expected if the Chiefs won. But during the actual game, I didn't feel like it was overkill at all. I was actually pleasantly surprised because I was a bit worried they were going to show her too much, and it was fine.
All right, when we come back, John Wilner hotline on UCLA losing Chip Kelly. Some of the rumors about who might be the next UCLA coach, and actually that they hired former UCLA All-American running back Deshaun Foster. His thoughts about that. Garrett Ross, Emery Winter, Jack McKenzie. Also, David Smoak. That's me and Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak, 365 Sports, back in the studio for the first time in quite some time. Thanks to all of our incredible sponsors who helped make our trip to Las Vegas, Nevada, what it was, and also those of you who followed along the way. And this is 365 Sports. Are you ready to conquer the road in style? You asked for it, and now you have Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. They have unbelievable deals just for you. Limited time only. Get ready to roll with 0% financing for a whopping 72 months on the 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cabs Lone Stars. That's right, 0% for a full 72 months. It's the deal that you've been dreaming for. But also, that's not it. Slashing prices on the 20. Now, remember what I mentioned was a 2024, the new 2024 Ram 1500 Crew Cab Lone Stars. But also the 2023 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab, 4-wheel drive, jaw-dropping $15,000 off the manufacturer's suggested retail price. You heard that right. right now, that is savings. And let's show some love for the brave first responders. As a token appreciation and what should be done, first responders get an extra $500 off the purchase price. Let's not forget the Ram 1500, the most luxurious, technologically advanced Ram 1500 ever. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Ted Teague, CEO and General Manager, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
It was broad daylight. I stepped into a gas station for 5 minutes to grab a snack, and just like that, my car was broken into. They made out like a bandit. My laptop, my phone, everything. I called my agent to see what could be done, and he restored my faith in humanity. My claim was processed so quickly, and I was able to recover my losses.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
As we mentioned early in the show, that Deshaun Foster is the new head football coach at UCLA. John Wilner Hotline, joins us on 365 Sports. And John, this was a quick turnaround after the Chip Kelly news in Ohio State became official on Friday. Did UCLA get it right?
You know, I'm not sure that they did. It's going to take a few years, I think, to figure that out. And that's partly because UCLA's got a whole bunch of other problems besides the identity of the head coach. There's some stuff that involves the school itself and the financial situation, the NIL situation. that, it's more than just a head coach. So we'll see. They got a brutal schedule next year in the Big Ten, and they got to keep their roster together, which I think is part of the reason they went quickly, right? Because you got that 30-day window, and they didn't want their roster to get poached, but they've got a long haul ahead of them.
John, what happened with Chip Kelly and UCLA where it got so sour so fast?
Well, I think what happened is that, and this is my guess, I think that Chip, they were going to bring him back, right? They won 8 games. They beat USC by 18 points. He had an $8 million buyout. There was no way they were going to cut him loose. But I think what happened over the winter, December, January, is he kind of got some cold feet. And Jimmy Sexton's his agent, and Sexton's aggressive. And my guess is they're looking at the schedule for next year, and they're seeing that his buyout dropped from $8 million to $4 million next year. I mean, they got to play LSU on the road in addition to the Big Ten schedule. So I think that they got a little bit of cold feet, and they knew the buyout was going down. And then you add on top of it the fact that Chip doesn't like to recruit. He doesn't like NIL. He doesn't like the transfer portal. Chip just wants to call plays like he did Oregon in 2010. And that's not what being a head coach is anymore, right? So I think you put all that together, and it's like, you know what? It's time to get out. And he's very close friends with Ryan Day. He was Ryan Day's offensive coordinator when Day played at New Hampshire. So they go way back. And now he just gets to call plays, which is what he wants to do.
John, there's the big, great conversation happening right now about the state of college football and where it's headed and all of that. And you kind of touched on it there at the end. Do you chalk this up as one of those signs of, man, being a college football head coach just isn't cracked up? Or do you think those other things outside of not liking the NIL, not liking the recruiting, weigh just as heavy, if not heavier?
I don't think it was all one thing. But I do believe that, there's a lot of coaches, especially the older, the guys that grew up, cut their coaching chops in the 80s and 90s, Kelly's age, late 50s. A lot of them are like, you know what, I'm going to keep doing this, but I don't like it. This is not what I signed up for. I wouldn't be surprised if, next off season we see a couple of more guys like Jeff Hafley or Chip Kelly who just say, you know what, I'm done with this. I want to be a coordinator. I want to go to the NFL. And the thing is, it's going to change even more dramatically in a couple of years when there's revenue sharing with the players, right? And that's going to be a whole new ballgame.
He has been Deshaun Foster on that staff for almost every year since he stopped playing football, the 1 year at Tech, and then he had just taken the job with the Raiders. Was his name even brought up as a candidate when Kelly resigned or left, on Friday?
Yeah, he was one, he was like, well, if they want to just stay in-house, they would give, I don't even think Foster had moved to Las Vegas yet or even started working for the Raiders. I'm not sure that had happened. But, part of their calculation was, what do we do to keep the coaching staff together and keep the roster together? And going into the Big Ten, I think they felt like we can't allow our roster to get gutted, go into the Big Ten and go 2-10, right? In the first year, we got to do whatever we can to be successful in next fall, and keeping the roster together and the coaching staff together were the biggest components to that. And Foster was the best bet to do that. If they had brought somebody else in, Tony White, who's he's Matt Rule's defensive coordinator at Nebraska, he played at UCLA. There's no guarantee that even though he's a Bruin, he's going to keep the staff and the roster together. With Foster, that was the best bet to get some stability.
John, what are the problems you illustrated earlier with UCLA? They've never really outlaid a bunch of money for football anyways. There's spending issues there. What's the whole picture?
Well, the whole picture is, they've got a chancellor who is actually retiring. That's another, complication of this whole thing. But their chancellor for years has not really cared about football. They don't support athletics. The school doesn't really support athletics like other schools do financially. They've got, they lost, or they had a $40 million operating budget shortfall last year. That's a regular thing. So they're coming in, with a real financial squeeze. They have no NIL game. Their admissions bar is higher than, the Oregons and the USCs. It's a little tough to get players in. But generally speaking, I look at it like this. A school like Ohio State or Michigan, they are all in with football across the campus, right? It's an institutional commitment to winning in football. USC has that. Oregon has that. UCLA does not have that. And you could make the case that they shouldn't because they've got more of an academic mindset. But it makes it much harder to compete with those other programs if you are not all in. And if your chancellor's not out there trying to raise money for your NIL collective and that kind of thing. So that's part of what I'm talking about.
John, so we know USC's all in and UCLA's is not, as you point out there. Feel pretty good about, just basic, but the general state of things, I guess, with the teams coming to the Big 12. I know Arizona schools have a lot of things to work out. What are kind of the sentiments you're getting right now, though, when it comes to Stanford and Cal? Is there uneasiness over what's going on out on the East Coast right now with Florida State? Are they pretty secure and not having to really worry about things? I'm just sort of wondering where their heads are at this point with the big move next season going cross-country.
Yeah, fingers crossed, right, that the ACC stays together. And then what happens if it doesn't, right? There's a whole bunch of scenarios if Florida State leaves and Clemson, North Carolina leaves. But, they got a reminder, Cal Stanford got a reminder of what their life is going to be like last week or 2 weeks ago when the ACC released a football schedule. Cal's opening at Florida. The first conference game is at Florida State. Stanford's first game in the ACC is at Syracuse on a Friday night. Their second game in the ACC is at Clemson the next weekend. And in between the trip to Syracuse and the trip to Clemson, Stanford starts their fall academic quarter. So that is like what their lives are going to be like. And then the ACC just went ahead last week and released the championship sites. All the tournaments and the championships for Olympic sports, they're all going to be in North Carolina. So it's going to be really challenging for those two schools and for their athletes. And that's over and above, whether the ACC collapses or not, or whether Florida State and Clemson leave and there's like a shell of itself remaining that Stanford and Cal are contractually bound to. They signed a 12-year grant of rights.
John, how would you describe the feeling about UCLA football, regardless of this move with Chip Kelly and Foster being hired? How would you describe the interest overall in UCLA football?
It's lukewarm. I mean, it's a basketball school, right? I mean, it's closer to Kentucky and Kansas and Duke than it is to USC and Ohio State and Alabama, right? I mean, that's its DNA. It's got 11 national championships. So they support, if their football team is really good, they'll support it. You'll get 70,000 people in there for a good game if they're real good. But, Chip Kelly's been there for 6 years. The fans have been turned off. So it's solid, but it's not passionate. I mean, of the 12 schools in the Pac, out here in what was the Pac-12, their fan base is for football, second bottom tier for passion, for sure.
Thank you, John. I don't think this slows things down because nothing ever slows down anymore in college football, but
it's crazy.
Yeah. And I know you were busting it today. Thanks for responding. I know you wrote the column about Foster and UCLA. We do appreciate you very much.
Love coming on your show. Thank
you, John Wilner, the Wilner Hotline, and yet another story that he had to cover, and there'll be something else before it's all said and done. What my biggest concern was about Chip Kelly leaving was that he would leave and another school, maybe a Autonomy 5 or whatever it's called school, that coach would take the UCLA job, and then the domino effect would restart again. Nothing like Saban, but that somebody else. And then here we go again with more and more coaching changes.
Why are you concerned about that?
I just didn't want. I'm done with it. I'm ready to move on.
Over having good news to talk about?
Well, I get it.
I mean, I don't know. I saw it and I was like, hell yeah, there's something else to talk about because it's more chaos. Like, I get it, but like things settle down and then what? I mean, So, I mean, this
well,
is
we're
what
only
it is.
about maybe within a month of spring drill starting, so we can go back and do that again.
Yeah, but coaching carousel is more interesting than spring drills.
Yeah, Paul, you'd run out of top 5s on coaching carousels now. I think you like look for Moorhead State or something like that.
I actually have, I'm grading the hires today. But yes, it is. You do.
You're grading which hires?
The hires, the most recent hires.
Okay.
Offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, the head coaching hires. I'll do that. I was going to put candidates for UCLA head coach out. I sent that out, and then I went and took a shower, and I got out of the shower, and Deshaun Foster got hired. So
well, how
that
about
killed
this?
that.
I sent a text to a UCLA writer, and I said, hey, would you come on to talk about the UCLA coaching search? And an hour later, he goes, it's done. It's over. Because they hired Deshaun.
And how very efficient of UCLA to do it that way. But yeah, I don't mind. Like, I just think it's weird that like here we are in February having a major program like UCLA having to fill their job. It is bizarre.
No, it is, and like there's times when I want the transfer portal to calm down, but I just don't want it to all go quiet. So
I get it.
If it's Chip Kelly, pulling a switcheroo and going from UCLA head coach to Ohio State offensive coordinator, then I think that's plenty interesting and something fun to talk about to pass the off-season time. But yeah, we'll have spring football and whatnot. I mean, I agree. There's sometimes like the recruiting all the time just gets annoying to me to no end. I mean, and there's dead periods and whatnot as well. But that's something I could really live without, honestly, is the constant updates on top 10 lists and things like that. But I know there's other parts of the fandom that eat that up, and that's like their bread and butter. That's what they love more than anything. So yeah, I guess to each their own. And just we're not in a period right now where anything in college athletics has ever fully settled down. So any thought of whether it's recruiting or head coaching hires or whatever that's really going to be the case these days is probably not very realistic, because there are going to be just out of the blue stories from time to time, and that Chip Kelly one, I guess not entirely out of the blue, because plenty have pointed out that this was going to happen sooner rather than later, or is inevitable at some point. But no, it was still surprising to see him go take an OC job, especially in the conference that they're about to join. And boy, oh boy, am I getting excited about UCLA football if I'm a fan after listening to John's interview and just athletics in general of like, man, well, thank God they got the Big Ten invite. Otherwise, I mean, what are they going to do about all their financial issues? I mean,
I think that's why, they did it. I mean, that's the only reason they did it. Not because they care.
Well, clearly, they don't care. Yeah, they don't care about being like Big Ten. I mean, I'm sure that they want to be Big Ten champs, but they're not going into it like Ohio State and Michigan and USC are approaching being in the Big Ten. And yeah, they want to win titles and whatnot, but yeah, they're not like Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC in attitude by any means, based on what John said.
Well, look, there would never be, and you saw that game, even though it was at 9 o'clock in the morning.
All right.
They had that game, I guess it was in San Jose State or something like that. A couple years ago, that was 9 o'clock in the morning. They got, screwed by the kickoff gods and had to do that 9 a.m. kickoff. And it looked like there were 6,000 people in what is it, Cavender Stadium in the Rose Bowl. It's huge. That's part of their problem.
It's 100,000.
They play
more.
They play in a stadium that's too big for their fan base. We've seen that a lot of places. We see it here. We saw it here with basketball. Like, it was just too big for the fan base. But when you have that, look, it does not matter. They could kick an Oklahoma game off at 4 a.m.
Yep.
Even they may not sell it out by their normal standards. At 4 a.m., it's going to be 80% full, which is how it is, because the passion's different. And so part of it was the athletic department's in so much debt. How do you get out of debt? Well, let's ride the coattails of USC into the Big Ten and hope for the best. And then maybe it'll generate some interest there. But being in the Pac-12 wasn't helping them out any.
No, I mean, and interject, I'm sure somebody's already thinking of typing out, well, the weather's so great, and they get to go surfing, and all the things we hear about why they have attendance issues, and that's valid. I'm not saying that it's not, but yeah, I mean, that doesn't also, though, then play into every problem that you have. So yeah, when you're financially in a bad spot, that's not just, oh, well, people have better stuff to do. So yeah, that Big Ten invite, I mean, it's going to cure at least part of that financial issue, if not most of it. And we'll see, like you said, if it has any effect on the actual fan turnout and things like that. I mean, I'd imagine Michigan coming to town or Ohio State coming to town, like it would for anybody in any conference, is going to bring some butts and seats. But yeah, beyond that, is it just more of the same? I don't know. And does it matter? Probably not. They're still just functioning as is.
Here's where the better stuff to do argument always falls on deaf ears to me, because I get it. Like, it's valid. But, like, so say you have those better things to do and the weather's great, like it is in Florida, like it is in California, like it is a lot of places. When it comes to college football in particular, you're talking about 8 days maximum that you wouldn't get to do that thing out of in California, the other 300 that you would where you're not going to have bad weather. So
7 of those days in California were last week, by the way.
Yeah, none of them were, but you have weird
weather
weather patterns that come in and throw you off, but that's as many days that you're going to be thrown off by that weird weather, 8, 9, 10, as you would going to a home football game. So that one doesn't, like, do you have to surf?
How many millions of people live in
California? Do you have to surf so much or golf so much or do whatever you're going to go so much that you can't do it another time? Like,
that's why I also get, when people complain about the kickoffs and whatever else, you're talking a home schedule of 5 to 8 games max.
If you're talking about basketball or baseball or being a season ticket holder for a major league team or something like that in a city, like, I get it. Like in Miami, you got 81 home games for the Marlins. If they're not good, are you going to sell it all 81? No, you're not. It's how it is. There's 81 of them, but there's 7 to 8 Miami home games. Like,
and 8 stretching it. That you got 8 game home
would
schedule.
be again, you're going to have like 6 to 8 depending on the year. So
like
you're
Baylor
talking about
had last year was like almost an eclipse of the schedule.
It is.
Yeah.
That's a perfect way to describe it. A leap year, an eclipse, whatever you want to say. So you're 7 days. Like, come on.
Paxton, UCLA should be good in football. You would think might be a sleeping giant football program, resources, etc. But again, is there interest in
They've never outlaid those resources, though.
Yeah.
And they've never woken up if they're a sleeping giant, really. I mean, they've had moments here and there. They've produced some good players. I don't want to make it sound like they're just some bum program. They're not. It's mostly just that whether the product's good or not, they don't have the support that a lot of the others have. And that's why when you talk about them in this blanket of like the teams moving conferences, it's like I don't include UCLA the same way. I know in basketball it might be a different story, but football-wise, no, I don't consider them the same as grabbing USC or grabbing Oklahoma or grabbing Texas. I don't even consider it the same as grabbing freaking Utah. Like, I mean, based on
Utah's
recent
won
years,
the conference.
Exactly.
The only reason that it's because it's the LA market, and yet they're not even hardly bringing that.
If it was UCSB, we wouldn't give a damn about the Bruins and Chip Kelly. I mean, we'd probably still care about Chip Kelly and that to an extent, but you know what I'm saying. Yeah, if it was UC Santa Barbara, the LA part has a lot to do with the talk about them and that market being as big of a pull as it was. So, yeah, I mean, good luck to them. Good luck to Deshaun Foster. And I'm not sure what to really make of that hire because I don't know him well enough or that situation well enough other than just what we've heard and read like everybody else. But it does seem like there's some winning that can be done there. It is just a bit more difficult job than some of the others that are going to be around the Big Ten. So, yeah, best of luck to them, and we'll see how being in the Big Ten works out for the Bruins here starting next year.
It was different, it seemed like to me, and maybe it's my age, but Terry Donahue era was really, really good. He was there 20 years, and they were something. They were something. Even then, they won, I think, or shared like 5 Pac-12 titles. Again, back then, that day, USC was really, really good among some other teams too. But there you are with UCLA football. But we went out and covered the Holiday Bowl. Baylor beat UCLA up, dominated the game. But what I noticed there was that around that week, and we were there for probably 4 or 5 days, there just wasn't a lot of oomph to it, and that's in San Diego. And that was just like, I don't know how many miles that is, not very far from L.A., and there wasn't a lot of oomph to it like when you go to the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans and you're playing a team from the SEC or something like that. All right, when we come back, a couple of other notes to get to. A note about Adam Flagler, the former Baylor star. And by the way, please, don't forget, if you don't mind, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't. This is 365 Sports.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
Cars priced right, both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Ben Erlinson, who'll navigate you through today's financial climate. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
I don't have this up on a tweet, but Babe Loffenberg is always a great follow if you haven't, and a great guest when you are looking for. Maybe the best thing about yesterday's game is that while coaching decisions are being dissected like a frog in 10th grade biology class, no talk of the officiating. Bill Vinovich and his crew called a pretty clean game. Certainly no glaring mistakes. Let's acknowledge that.
They were determined not to be a factor in the game.
Or the game.
I mean, they didn't want to be that. Now, did they miss holding calls? Yes. But guess what they've always done? Missed holding calls or done that. Yeah, I mean, there was no egregious, stupid, oh, my God, like, what are you guys thinking call, which is huge for the Super Bowl. They called a really
especially
clean game.
After the year they had, yeah.
Yeah, and look, we've had games this year in the NFL, big games, big important games that – honestly, you kind of wish the wireless microphone would have gone out. Like, I don't even need to know what the penalty that you guys called is. Just count off the yards and flash it on the screen.
There were 3 or 4 early, but they were false starts. They were obvious. I thought for the most part they let them play. They let them play.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really take notice of anything. There was a couple of, I guess, close calls, you could say, on quarterback hits that you just don't know how they're going to go with that. But I thought it was a pretty cleanly officiated game, and I didn't think about the officials, which is always a good thing. So, yeah, I guess that point is spot on from Babe Laufenberg that they stayed out of the way and just did their jobs, and that was great to see. But, I don't think anybody's questioning them. That's the big topic today seems to be the whole overtime debate of San Francisco taking the ball first and should they have taken it second, and everybody magically has the right answer today after it already happened of what they should have done after losing the game, of course. But I don't know. That's been the big takeaway is just how Kyle Shanahan handled that game coaching-wise, especially the overtime period. And earlier than that, like getting away from the run. You kept hearing the announcers like, they're going to get back to the run, and here they are getting back to the run. And they never could get back into the run really the way they wanted to. And, I thought that they started off really well, and they just kind of got outplayed, outcoached, and made too many mistakes. And I give credit to Kansas City. But, the overtime, I was one of millions of others going like, okay, what's going on here? Like, what exactly is happening? Like, what are the rules? I had to brush up myself. To be perfectly honest, I had no idea what was going on for a second there. But I can see now why everybody has an opinion on it.
I didn't even think about it until Bill Vinovich said it, and I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that tweet from a year ago.
Yeah, right? I was like
that was what it came like, oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Which makes sense what they do.
Yeah,
now.
It makes sense. Yeah, and it was all based out of the fact that, like, Josh Allen, and it was kind of grew out of that AFC Championship game where Josh Allen did get a shot to respond, all that in Mahomes' game. But
there were people on Twitter losing their minds that Kansas City was going to run out of time to either kick a tying field goal or score when it got down inside like 30 seconds because they didn't understand the 15 minutes would roll over into another 15 minutes. They would just flip sides of the field like you do from the first to second and third to fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think one of the things I like to see was Brock Purdy played pretty well last night. I mean, I think the thing he proved, like, that he's going to have his detractors forever because people are draft obsessed. But what it proved last night is that Brock Purdy's like the other 31 quarterbacks. He's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. Like,
yeah, I mean,
no one is. Like, everyone, like, he's in a fraternity of everyone else. Like, that's it. Everyone else who's a quarterback is in that fraternity.
I don't think he ever made like a throw that I was like, my God, there was some tip to the line of scrimmage. The last one when Jones put pressure on him, when he was wide open, he couldn't get it to him. I don't think he played poor. I thought he played like who he is. I thought he did pretty well. He didn't run as much like he did against Green Bay because that opportunity wasn't there.
Yeah, no, Brock Purdy played fine. I mean, he got some throws that I'm sure he would like to have back, but you'd also like to have less pressure in your face when trying to make some of those throws. But, yeah, I mean, he had a great year, and he's going to have his detractors, people that feel like they could probably do better, I suppose, at quarterback. But, I mean, Kyle Shanahan knows offense better than just about anybody out there. So if he feels like Brock Purdy can – orchestrate what he needs to get done, especially with the cast of all-stars around him, then, I mean, who am I to say that Kyle Shanahan's wrong there? Now, you can definitely question some of Kyle Shanahan's decisions last night, but he wouldn't have Brock Purdy out there, and they wouldn't have been in the freaking Super Bowl if Brock Purdy wasn't a legit quarterback. And he had some throws last night that you're like, oh, the way he dropped that in there, you're like, damn, that's seeing the field at a rate that not everybody can see. And I think that was what was pointed out was his field vision, his anticipation, things like that don't necessarily show up in the statistics that maybe he doesn't get enough credit for. But, yeah, he had a nice night and just wasn't good enough. Don't turn the ball over. I mean, that was the thing, that the fumbles.
The muff punt.
And
then McCaffrey
The muff punt was the whole game changed.
Yeah,
I mean,
that to me flipped the switch. That gave Kansas City a freebie.
They are a lucky team, man. They are. Kansas City is very, very good, but I just feel like when I watch them, more lucky stuff ends up happening in their favor than I feel like any other team that I watch on a regular basis.
Well,
am I crazy?
No, but
and that punt was like one of them. It's like no reason for that to have happened.
It was a bad punt, that became a mistake because of just the fact gravity and physics took over where it landed.
What is it? Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Part of the reason they're so lucky is because they're so good. Like, you
still have to take advantage of it and score a touchdown rather than settle, because San Francisco got a fumble and ended up, I think, only kicking a field goal.
Well, they had the fumble early on that went nowhere. But for all of them had traded a turnover
the Mahomes pick was near midfield and they got nothing.
Yeah, nowhere. So that's the thing. Like I think the lesson the 49ers can teach everybody who's going to play the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes. Look, you have to take kill shots. You have to take advantage. If you don't, he's like Michael Myers. You can throw him off a building. You can shoot him a bunch of times. Whatever it is, you got to find out the way to really get him down. Otherwise, he's just going to pop back up and keep coming after you.
It felt like your defense was playing so well that you were just going to be able to win the game 10-9.
Well, that was what was interesting, was to at least see some pressure on him for once. To actually see people getting to Patrick Mahomes early on was interesting. And what a cast of what an island of misfit toys, and you've got Chase Young and Randy Gregory and Joey Bosa and just all the great pass rushers that they have. To see them rattle him a little bit early on was interesting. But, I mean, the lesson is this, you have to cut Patrick Mahomes like a snake. You got to cut the head off the snake to kill it. I think it's the same way basically with the Chiefs. But you also can't, I don't know, guys, miss an extra point.
Yeah.
Like, when I talk about lucky, like, you had a muff punt when 49ers are in full control, or not full control, but they're that felt like the 49ers were in control of that game. They're getting the ball back, go run the football, wear time off. Instead, you fumble the punt, but you had the missed extra point. You're not in overtime if not for the missed extra point. So, like, just stuff
or
like...
at least Kansas City would have scored a touchdown at the end and not just kick a field goal.
But you're not in overtime regardless.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, like, just stuff like that just happened for San Francisco. I think that's the stuff that kills you. Like, why did we miss an extra point? And that was all on the kicker. You fumbled the punt.
That kick was low, wasn't it? It seemed like it was pretty low.
It was on the fault of the kicker, yeah. And so, like those two things right there alone, I mean, that's two plays that had you on the losing side of the equation. So it just shows you the margin for error is very thin, particularly in a game like that, but especially when you're playing a team as good as Kansas City is like, you cannot give them any breaks. And a couple of moments when you had full momentum, there's nothing like, it doesn't matter even if you're up 14 points. If you miss an extra point, just the air goes out of everything. 'Cause it's just such a stunning thing to happen.
Or kick the ball out of bounds after you've scored.
Yeah, like those are the two just biggest energy dumpers that are possible in a game. It feels like, other than just like a pick six or something.
A block punt is probably the worst. Yeah,
but those are right. You miss an extra point, even if you're still winning. It's just like, damn, like, because
it always comes back to haunt you. It's like an extra out in an inning in baseball.
And you knew it was last night, and it did. Yeah, because it directly led to them being able to tie the game. So that was a couple of big time miscues by San Francisco that they wish they could have back for sure.
Only Bob Sturm came up with this. He works for the Ticket. He's a great broadcaster up in Dallas, but he's also really good at breaking down data, trends, etc. Spagnuolo last night for the Chiefs, the only one team this year played man-to-man coverage more than Kansas City, and that was Cleveland. 71% of the time last night, the Chiefs played man-to-man pressure. 64.3% of the time, they played cover zero more than any other opponent that played San Francisco. Only one of the team was double digits or two. They did it 21% of the time. So they did things. They were who they were, no matter what. San Francisco with weapons and or not. One more note about Mahomes. This is from Kevin Clark. Kevin Clark, the reason I think Mahomes is Michael Jordan is because Jordan relegated so many would-be legends to minor characters. He left literally no breathing room for anyone else and shaped the legacies of basically all of his contemporaries. We might be seeing that again. He's on the way. Kind of like Tiger was in golf for the longest of time and Jordan here.
That's why they're comparable. I mentioned it earlier about the Jazz or the Suns. Like, look, Barkley thought he was going to get his title, right? When he went to Phoenix, and then Jordan was there. Like, all these things happened. Look at, I know everybody says, the whole Rockets thing when he was gone. Who knows what would have happened had he never gotten sideways? Like, we don't know. But Michael Jordan, every day that John Stockton and Karl Malone and Charles Barkley and Sean Kemp and Gary Payton get up in the morning and wonder where their ring is, it's with Michael Jordan and those guys because he existed. In any other year, look, Reggie Miller, never got to the finals against Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan was there. Reggie Miller should probably have a ring in most eras of the NBA. He would probably have one now. Does it?
No, he does not.
I don't know much about Kevin Clark, but I know him for one reason alone, and I'm sure he does a really good job and everything, but I will never forget the smarmy-ass realignment take that he had last summer, just a few weeks before the Pac schools all fell apart. For some reason, this has always stuck with me because it was just so smarmy at the time. And I had it bookmarked for forever because it was just such a freezing cold take. But it was like, gosh, what was it? It was something along the lines of like, I know one thing I want to do with. I have to find it, but I always remember him.
Was it about the Big 12 or?
It was about the big. It was about basically. It was calling people who thought that the Pac-12 schools were going to jump to the Big 12. Like it was basically making fun of that.
Like a handful of others.
It was like 2 weeks later that everything changed over. But it was something like, I know that when I'm in a conference, I don't know. I would have to find it, but I'll forever see that name, and I will think of freezing cold realignment take. But
there were a lot of those.
He brings up a good point there.
There were a lot of them that thought that way. All right, so there's that. I believe, let's do this, and then we come back with the top 5. The Big 12 football, this is from FanDuel. College football from Tyler Dreiling. College football win totals according to FanDuel. Kansas State, Utah, 9.5. Arizona, this will get a lot of discussion. Arizona, KU, Texas Tech, and UCF, 8.5. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, TCU, 7.5. West Virginia, 6.5. And then teams that would not be bowl eligible based on right now, Baylor, Cincinnati, Colorado, Arizona State, BYU, and Houston.
I'll take the over on Colorado, thinking that they'll get to bowl eligibility. I will take the over on Kansas. I think they're going to be pretty good.
You think they're going to win 9?
Yeah.
Okay.
I do. I will take the under on Utah right now because I don't know how good Cam Rising's going to be, but I reserve the right to change. Kansas State, I don't know, man. That's tough. I mean, like this might be an entire 9-3 league next year. We don't know. Like everybody.
Well, that's impossible.
Yeah, I mean, no, but you're saying like the top, like the top of it might everybody might be 9-3,
right?
9-3, 8-4, 7-5 might be like the rundown of a big chunk of this league. So yeah, Tech and UCF, I gotta wait and see. Arizona, same thing, new coach.
Yeah, I'm not going over 8.5 for UCF right now.
Yeah.
That's a no-go for me. The rest of them I need to sit and actually stew on a little bit. I mean, that seems pretty good for West Virginia, no? I mean, after the year that they just had and all they got coming back to only be at 6.5.
Yeah. Well, Neil Brown will be talking about that in Vegas this summer.
I feel like that. I mean, that's probably that reason for – it's that way for a reason that I'm not thinking of and that Vegas is. But, I would think that that's kind of lowballing them a little bit based on what they just did and what they've got coming back. But – yeah, that's interesting. Shoot, man. Baylor at 5.5, that's fair. That's totally fair. And I think same for Cincinnati and Colorado is like make those schools prove themselves a little bit, so put them right on that bumper of being bowl eligible. I think that's totally logical. BYU at 4.5, man, that's not where you want to be.
Yeah,
I mean, I understand Arizona State. I understand Houston. I think Houston – I'd have to look at their schedule, but with Willie Fritz coming in, I think that's manageable. I'd probably go over with them and 4.5. But yeah, BYU, that's a tough spot to be expected to be in because if they're that low again, then man, that's not going to be good news for Kalani Sitake.
West Virginia, I went to go look. I was like, okay, what were they? They were what? They won their bowl game. I think they ended up being 9-4 overall. And I was like, okay, maybe they had a TCU 2022 or Baylor 2021 year where they won a bunch of one-score games, but no. They won by 7 against Tech, 3 against TCU. The other wins were by 3 at Baylor, and they held on at the end. Remember, Baylor came back, and then they blew the lead at the end. But they didn't just win a bunch of close games. They won a few games where they knocked people out, too, including the win against Pittsburgh by 11. Won by 13 at UCF, 30 against Brigham Young, and 21 against Cincinnati. So I wondered if maybe that flips the switch because they had 3 or 4 wins or 5 or 7 wins, but that's not the case where they were one-score games. All right, Adam Flagler, former Baylor star, part of that national championship team, signed by the Oklahoma City Thunder. Good for Adam, one of the great dudes ever, a hell of a basketball player. He gets signed by Oklahoma City to a 2-day contract.
Two-way
contract. When we come back, Paul Catalina and his top 5.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now in downtown Waco on Franklin. Look, if if you were wondering last night, hey, where's a great place to go get something for my Super Bowl party, and you just kind of couldn't settle on one, and you wound up not getting what you wanted, well, you missed out on Riverbend Liquor and Wine, because they have the best selection of local craft bourbons. They have the best selection of craft beers around. They have wonderful customer service, and they can pretty much point you in the right direction of anything you're looking for, because they are absolutely fantastic. And hey, say you were on the run, you were running late, and you were worried you're going to miss kickoff. They got a speedy drive-through window, and believe me, it is so fast, it will make your head spin. They know exactly where everything is. I've never used the drive-through window and had one person yelling back to the other, like, where is that? They know. They have a knowledgeable staff, and they are fantastic. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, now with 2 locations to serve you.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Top 5 grades for recent hires. Now, there's a DC hire, an OC hire, and 3 head coaching hires in this, but thought I would get you guys' thoughts on this. Also, a story I don't know if we got to today. We might have missed it, but we didn't bring it up. Ryan Grubb, no longer the Alabama offensive coordinator, going to the Seahawks as their OC.
He's following, so was the offensive line coach following Grubb to Seahawks, who was at Washington and then Alabama.
Yeah, so Kalen DeBoer's got a little bit more work to do in filling out his staff, but we'll see what he does there. Maybe he steals another G5 coach for one of those jobs. You never know. Number 5, this one might have flown under the radar a little bit. Wink Martindale is now the Michigan defensive coordinator under Sharon Moore. This is probably going to be a short-term thing because he might be back in the NFL, but with what they do have coming back on defense, although they lose some dudes. When you talk about Sanistrell, Chris Jenkins, Michael Barrett, Junior Colson, all gone, but they do have some dudes on that defense and some guys who can play. I think Braden McGregor's leaving as well. This is an A+ because this is one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. He and Brian Daboll at the Giants just didn't see eye to eye anymore, but this is a huge hire as far as strategy goes. I don't know what kind of recruiter he'll be, but I do think that we're seeing more and more of, okay, you coach, we've got a big staff that can recruit. The position coaches are going to do that. You can come in and be a closer for us. But I think this is a great strategic hire as far as X's and O's goes for Michigan.
Yeah, I'd been out of college for 2 decades plus. So it's going to be a big return to the landscape, and a much different landscape than when he last left it. That's for sure. So yeah, I don't think you're going to worry about him dabbling too much with NIL offers and all that kind of stuff. I think he's just going to worry more about coaching football and coaching defense. And I mean, for a guy who was a part of the Ravens for so long, I mean, he couldn't really ask for much better with his experience and the people that he's been alongside and the teams that he's coached. So yeah, I think that's a terrific hire on paper for the Wolverines.
I get nervous about the transition, though. Then I think about Phil Snow, who was in the NFL, and others, but obviously a guy that, and Michigan, that's a nice, considering they could have, this could have lingered for a while, so good for them.
Look, now that you have these big recruiting staffs, I think that you can probably have a coach or two on your staff that is, emeritus when it comes to recruiting. Mm-hmm. Just come in and talk to the guys, make them feel comfortable, close a guy if we need you to. But, Wink Martindale's not going to have to go to, Cedar Ridge High School to go talk to a guy. When he comes into the visit, hey, this is Wink Martindale. He coached Haloti Ngata. Oh, really? What do you know about that? Those are the things he's going to be there for.
Yeah, and I know his Giants tenure didn't last very long, nor was it a very good ending because they were not a very good defense. But I think there's more reasons in play than just, to think that that's just going to carry over to Ann Arbor now. And it doesn't work like that. So, I think as far as experience and coaching tree and just the players he's been around and all those different types of things, I think that's a really solid hire for Sharon Moore.
Yeah. Number 4, Chip Kelly, Ohio State offensive coordinator. This is an A hire. I think it's an upgrade over Bill O'Brien. I think this actually is one of those weird coaching moves that kind of worked out for everybody. That Bill O'Brien was an interesting hire for Ohio State. I just never thought that he fit what they're trying to do there or kind of the vibe. And he clearly kind of wanted to be a head coach again, and that's what he is at Boston College, and we'll talk about him in a second. But with Chip Kelly becoming their offensive coordinator, this is another one where they're probably not going to make him recruit that much, and when they do, it's going to be to close an A-type player. Let's get this done. And you talk about, what the offense is going to be for a quarterback. Look, he's been very good at developing quarterbacks in his career. Look, the most recent one that you can say happened was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, who was great at UCLA, appears to be a guy who has some staying power in the NFL, at least as a backup during his career. I think this is great for Ohio State. It's probably going to work out for Chip Kelly, and he and Ryan Day are friends. So now the pressure's off him, and we'll probably see kind of a different Chip Kelly we've seen over the last decade and a half of football.
Yeah, I think is that an A? Is that the grade?
Just an
right?
A.
Okay,
Just an A.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think on paper it's as good as. I mean, what other name out there other than if you will get like Lincoln Riley or something? Are you going to get that's better, splashier than Chip Kelly? Obviously, a lot going on out in Westwood that led to him eventually deciding that he'd rather be an OC in Columbus than be the head coach in LA, which is still just, I don't know, we still got to wrap our heads around that move a little bit more. Even if it was imminent that he was going to be gone sooner rather than later, or even if he didn't want to recruit anymore, that's still just, that's wild to see somebody leave a Big Ten coaching job, head coaching job, to go take a Big Ten OC job. So that's wild to me. But yeah, I mean, that's an A hire as far as I'm concerned. I don't know how you could have done much better if you're the Buckeyes.
Number 3, Deshaun Foster, UCLA, the new head coach. I'll give it a B- right now, just because we don't know anything about him as a head coach. It could wind up being an A+ hire. We have no idea. But he is. You heard John Wilner, if you did, about an hour ago, talking about what he is actually up against when it comes to how they allocate their resources when it comes to athletics, how much they really care about it. But I do think this. If you're a program like UCLA, who has never really been able to break through, hiring an alum is probably a better idea, at least in the short term, because you go to the Big Ten, you're going to have some kind of exciting things going on, and then you have someone who loves your program who can tell people why he loves your program, was successful in your program as a player and as a coach, and believes in it. So that might be a better sell for right now. Plus, you keep the roster together. You don't have to get into a coaching search in February, which nobody else is doing, and it is problematic because there's a lot of guys you might have been able to get before that have already moved. They've already bought a house. They've already decided to work on this thing, and then taking that job would put them behind the 8 ball as much as they don't want to be the UCLA coach. Plus, if Deshaun Foster's unsuccessful and you're one of those other guys, you can just, ring that doorbell again when it comes open during a normal time. So I think it's a B- right now, but I'm intrigued by it because I like it when people hire outside the box and give people a chance that haven't been head coaches before. You never know someone's good at something until you give them a chance.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit on everything there. So I'll just add that, I think that you don't know until you know, and there's nothing to say this is a bad hire right now, and there's nothing to say it's a great hire. There's the reasons you listed as for why it makes sense for UCLA, the familiarity and all that. So I think given the predicament that they were in, that's not a job that probably most anybody's going to leave their current sitting gig for. That's in a similar situation, so you're limited already there. This isn't like the coaching carousel is all active right now, so I think that's a move that makes sense, and best of luck to Deshaun Foster. We'll see, but I couldn't possibly give an accurate grade on whether this is a great hire. I don't think anybody can. It's just too soon and too many unknowns. But, I mean, best of luck to him. And certainly I think having a guy that knows the issues in play is better than having somebody walk in and be like, wait, I didn't sign up for this, or this is worse than I thought. He's going to understand the culture already and kind of how things operate.
You wonder if there was no transfer portal, if that would have been the hire.
Probably
because
not.
Part of this hire was he can perhaps, you hope, keep everything, for the most part, from falling apart, like we've seen with some other places. And that's going to happen in some cases anyway, but you hope that that's not, hey, let's bring in Deshaun, everyone knows him, rather than he's the one we think can win and help this program succeed.
I mean, he might have still been the hire after a process, but they would at least have had time for a process. Yeah, exactly. You don't have time for one now. Yeah. So, who's to say? He could have still been the guy, but no, certainly I think when you see hires having to be made as quickly as this one was having to be made, then that's a product of just the environment that the NCAA and college football has found itself in.
Number 2, Bill O'Brien at Boston College. I'll give this one a B. And the reason I'm not giving it an A, just because, I don't think he's going to innovate. I don't think he's going to do anything that makes Boston College a destination. But Boston College has, in its history, had some F hires. Some guys that just aren't going to fit there. And I thought Jeff Hafley was a good hire, but again, he didn't want to do this anymore, and he had gotten them to a point where they're a bowl team this year. But I think Bill O'Brien can get Boston College to a point where they're consistently a 6, 7, 8-win team. Maybe they do. The last time they were really kind of scary was Matt Ryan was their quarterback. Maybe they do find a Matt Ryan and keep him there and do that and win some games and challenge for an ACC title. Maybe that does happen. But what Boston College needs to focus on, especially in the new era of college football, is finding a coach who wants to be there, who wants to stay, who wants to build consistency, and is not, there for a stepping stone. I don't think Bill O'Brien's at that point in his career. He seems to want to be back in Boston. So I think this is a good hire for them. This will provide consistency that maybe they haven't had in quite some time.
Well, I think that they have, though. I think that if you look at Steve Adazio and then Jeff Hafley, the last decade or so plus, they've been pretty consistently 6 and 7 wins. Pretty consistently year in and year out. There was the off year 2 years ago for BC with Jeff Hafley, they had 3 wins, but other than that, he won 6, 6, and 7. Adazio 7, 7, 3, 7, 7, 7, 6. So that's pretty consistent, but can he take that torch and run with it some more, or can he take it to where Tom O'Brien had it in the early 2000s when they weren't just a 6, 7, 8 win or lower machine and they could actually go win double-digit games? I think that's what your hope is with Bill O'Brien, is that he can take them and kind of take them out of how steady that they've been in so many ways, and be there and be there for a while and really build something up. So I think it's a really good hire for them. What are your expectations at Boston College? Your expectations right now are to do bare minimum what you've been doing, which is basically bare minimum getting bowl eligible
be a
every
bowl
year.
team.
Yeah.
They have had some names in that program. Jack Bicknell, Tom Coughlin, Dan Henning, Tom O'Brien. So they've had some that I get this feeling that Bill O'Brien, because maybe he looks or sounds or is boring, that he's not a good football coach. He's a pretty good football coach. He also went to Penn State when nobody else really wanted to and took over that job. And so I just kind of get the feeling, and maybe it's me.
I wouldn't hire him to be the Ohio State head coach, but at Boston College, he's fine.
Yes,
that's
absolutely
fine.
Yep.
And if he wasn't a good football coach, unlike everybody who types that out, then I don't think that the people who have been hiring him would continue to hire him.
Yeah.
It's like a lot of people who know football seem to really like the guy.
Nick Saban hired him.
So I don't really get that, but it's bland, or it's not as exciting as this offense or whatever. I can understand, but it's also Bill O'Brien, the head coach, not Bill O'Brien, the offensive coordinator. And there is a difference there. And so for BC, I think it's totally fine. But can you break through the 6, 7 wins each year? And can you win bowl games consistently? They've won 1 bowl game in like the last 10 years or so. Or no, excuse me, 2 in like the last 10 years. So, and in between that, you've had a handful of losses and a handful of non-appearances. So he can definitely stand to improve them a bit.
Number 1, Sharon Moore at Michigan. I guess it's an A-. Like, maybe had they gotten time to do a deeper coaching search, they could have found a bigger name. But look, this is a guy who went 4-0 in the interim role this year. Absolutely, especially in dire situations. Penn State didn't know he was going to be coaching that game until Friday night. Ohio State, which is, the biggest rivalry in the sport maybe, and came out on top every single time. He is absolutely ready for this gig. I think he'll do wonderful at Michigan. They keeps the roster mostly together. And again, the only reason it's A- is like, maybe they could have gone had they had time to do a deeper coaching search. But even if they did, I think they probably would have still landed on Sharon Moore, a guy who's an up-and-comer and certainly has the market cornered on that team there right now as far as the roster and the guys staying and all that. So I think this is an A- hire, again, just because they didn't really get to kick the tires on anyone else, but still a really good hire.
You wonder, the system's in place. He was a part of that. Can he also now tweak it to be what's good for him while also keeping what has helped them become successful? And I hope that he does. What he did under the circumstances I thought was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, he did a really good job. So that played into just the overall package of the other attributes that are part of just the I guess, appeal of Sharon Moore. And so to see him step into a situation like that and carry the team as the head coach for a brief period there, not entirely, but there on Saturdays. That was a good look, and obviously showed the rest of the world who maybe didn't know of just how important Sharon Moore was to that program and how much the players loved him and all of those different types of things, and maybe opened some people's eyes to like, who's this? And the fact that he is one of the bright young coaches out there, and now he's got it all to himself. And it'll be very fun to watch, see how he continues to build off of now what is a national championship team and to follow that up. But he's stepping into some awfully big shoes. He knows that. Everybody knows that. And he seems ready for it. So, yeah, it's going to be fun to see what he can do now with that job. And Michigan's got that natty drought off their back, start back at 0, and they've got that to go and use on the recruiting trail moving forward. So as good of a time as any, even though the pressure's as high as it's ever been.
You know what's interesting? I'll never forget what John King told me when they won the state championship. First time, his former coach at Longview High School. Yes. He is coach at Longview High School, Haynes' father, that they had not won a state title since 1937. They won it, and Pat Collins, who hired him to come to Longview from Louisiana, said, enjoy it now because now the pressure even now mounts. Oh my God, I can't wait. Can we finally win? When you do, and it actually, can you withstand what will be even more pressure because people expect it? Retired stockbroker, thank you for the super chat on everyone being back together again. Also, Big 12 Media Days. Mike Craven, Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine, saying July 9th and 10th is what they're being told. It will be. We'll go back to Vegas for that. At some time in the summertime. And also, here's a way to kind of sum up college football. This is from Solid Verbal on Ohio State. So as of like 6 weeks ago, UCLA's coach will call plays for Ohio State that involve Alabama's center snapping to a Kansas State quarterback who will hand it to an Ole Miss running back. That's kind of where we are now in college football. I saw that just a few days ago. Garrett, thanks for bringing that one in. To the way we wrap up the show.
Yeah, and I agree. It's not bad. It's not great, though. It just is what it is. I feel that in my bones. That's kind of how I feel about a lot of it, too. I don't love necessarily a lot of it. I don't despise it either. It just kind of is what it is. So you play the game by the rules that are out there, and those are the rules right now, is that you can have a team come together the way that has come together for Ohio State, as odd as that is, to see unfold the way that it did. But, yeah, that's a interesting way of looking at it, and spot on.
I bet there's like 50 of those examples all throughout college football. Garrett Ross, thank you. Jack McKenzie, thank you. It's nice to be back. We have, I thought, a very productive trip in Las Vegas. One day I'll write a book about Garrett Emery and Paul Catalina. For everyone that's in the chat room, text today. Thank you. For Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina, for our sponsors every day that help us do what we do on 365 Sports, and, of course, you again, the audience. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe. Back tomorrow, triple option at 1, and also tomorrow we'll be on the air at 3, and Sports Tonight on the CW at 10:30. Good night.